Volume 1. Synopsis. Sword God Ahn Su-ho. The greatest swordsman player in humanity was, surprisingly enough, a civil servant hunter belonging to the Korean Hunter Association. Su-ho chose the path of a public servant purely to end the gates. Perhaps that's why, when one of the disaster-level gates called the Final Gate was attacked, in an ironic turn of events, he was betrayed by his comrades. You should have joined us from the beginning. Now I know why people say that civil servants are so inflexible. The reason his comrades betrayed him, because if the gates were closed, their power would disappear. Is this the end? Just as Su-ho's consciousness was fading away, rebooting player on Su-ho's system. The system gave Su-ho one more chance, a chance to go back to the past and set everything right. Chapter 1. A lump of dark red blood spilled from Ahn Su-ho's mouth. His vision blurred and his breathing came in gasps. His heart burned with pain and his internal organs felt as if they were twisting. Still, Su-ho stood upright, holding on to the hilt of his sword, even though only the hilt was left. It was a meager resistance. No matter how they called him the world's greatest sword god, a sword god without a sword was neither a god nor anything else. Besides, the ones he faced were all S-rank awakened ones. No, they were above the average S-class players. In this world, they were revered as heroes, the strongest warriors who knew him better than anyone else. Or rather, his former comrades. Seeing Su-ho's pitiful state, Alex Morgan, known as the world's greatest tank, scoffed. A guy with a broken sword still pretending to be all that, you should have joined us in the first place. That's why officers are so stubborn. Official. Surprisingly, that was Su-ho's official occupation in society. Even though his skills were strong enough to make him the top member of the Korean Hunters Association in the world, he'd finally chosen to become a civil servant instead of joining a private guild. And there was only one reason. In the past, Su-ho had lost his entire family to the gates, and he truly wished for the complete eradication of the gates from this world. At that moment, someone laughed. Exactly. It doesn't matter if he's the sword god or whatever, they say he's just not cut out for it, and isn't this the result? I hate guys in suits for that very reason. The woman who laughed was Suzuki Endo. The strongest mage in the world, also known as the Witch. Archmage, Sage, Archmage, of all her numerous titles, the reason she was called Witch, it was because her specialty was poison. And what would happen if her deadly art, all poison, was used on a human? Su-ho didn't want to know, especially not by experiencing it herself. The skin where the poisoned arrowhead had touched had long since melted, and the excruciating pain that felt like his entire body was being torn apart continued without end. The only reason Su-ho could still stand was the effect of the poison immunity he'd received from eating the heart of the poison demon, Venom, in the past. Without it, my body would have melted away by now. Of course, there was no way to completely heal from the witch's all poison. Although not even S-rank healing potions like elixirs could cure it, there was one person in the world who could, a saint-level healer, Isabella, who possessed the power to cure all poisons and diseases. Without realizing it, Su-ho looked at Isabella. Oh, don't look at me like that, I'm here because I agreed to this mission. At her words, Su-ho said nothing. He hadn't expected anything from the beginning. If she'd had a shred of decency, she would have healed me first, but Isabella didn't. Exactly as she had said, she was on their side and had agreed to their proposal. He found it sickeningly hypocritical. For someone who preached hope, love, and devotion every day to end up blinded by greed and resort to this, Su-ho spoke up, gasping for breath. Have you no shame? How are you different from the monsters? At least we didn't slaughter people. The man who answered Su-ho's question, the hero representing Britain known as the god of archery Hex Hood, with a regretful expression, he said, Su-ho, even now just say you'll join us, I like you. Like me, my ass, and that's why you shot me in the back. If Hex hadn't been a part of this mission, they would never have gotten Su-ho to this point. After all, Hex's arrows were silent, leaving no trace of wind or sound, making them ideal for assassination. Su-ho closed his eyes silently. He had reached his limit, damn it. This time, he'd thought he'd finally be able to clear all the gates that were called catastrophes. No, he had only managed to clear one of the 5 catastrophes. Right after he defeated one of the 5 disasters, Su-ho had been hit by the witch's poison. Because of that, he'd believed that he could handle the remaining gates and finally bring peace to humanity. And now, betrayal. The reason was also absurd. They were afraid that if peace came to the world, they would lose their place. How could that be considered logical? When he first heard the suggestion, he'd thought it was a joke and laughed it off. He hadn't expected it to be real. He'd been too careless. He should have prepared for this from the beginning. But it was already too late. The milk was spilled. Su-ho took a long breath. He didn't have much time left. Nobody knew his body better than him. The chance to survive here was zero. So he calmed his breathing and took aim again. He covered his anger with calm. All he could do now was to kill as many of them as possible for the sake of the remaining humanity. This was the last duty he believed he had as a hero of humanity. I must succeed. Suho focused his mind. The sword was broken. There was no blade left. His endurance was already at its limit. But he had one last hidden move that he hadn't shown anyone. Originally, he had planned to reveal it only after he'd fully mastered it, but now he had no other choice. At that moment, an incredible aura began to radiate from Suho. Guh, don't be afraid, it's all a bluff. It's just the sword god. Feeling the pressure, Alex immediately raised his shield and frowned while Suzuki sneered as if it didn't scare her at all. Fine, think like that, get careless. Suho slowly raised his arms. In his hands there was a bladeless sword hilt, and when he raised both hands they quickly swung down. At that moment, slice, a sharp slicing sound. At the same time the witch's head fell to the ground. Ayeg and Alex, holding his shield, had both of his arms severed, but wasn't there a blade? Even as they watched, they found it hard to believe. What is this? Isabella, shocked, belatedly tried to heal Alex, but, why? The healing didn't work, it was strange. She was the healer who could even cure the witch's poison, wasn't she? Seeing this, Suho, panting, lifted the corners of her mouth in a faint smile. You have reached the realm of unity with the divine sword. You have mastered the ultimate sword technique. You have mastered the formless sword SS. Congratulations, you are the first to master a skill at the SS level. The system recognizes your... The messages began to pour in. Suho's eyes widened as he read it. The body is the sword is the body. For one who follows the sword, this is the sublime realm to which all aspire, unity of body and sword. At the same time, he had become the first person in the history of mankind to acquire an SS rank skill. That's right, Suho's hidden move. It was the highest realm known as the heart sword or formless sword. Once mastered, it could even cut through space itself, the true domain of the sword god. Finally, I've mastered it. Seeing the messages, Suho let out a wry smile. He had finally reached the realm he'd wished for so much. But it had to be now. It was a shame, and it was infuriating. He had managed to sever the witch's head and Alex's arms, but he had no more strength left. Suho staggered backwards. And just before he fell off the steep cliff, he uttered a curse-like warning to them all. I will never forget this day. His allotted time had come to an end. Suho threw himself off the cliff. At the same time, the pain faded and his consciousness slipped away. But the system messages continued. As the first to reach the transcendent realm, the system offers you the opportunity to become even stronger. Restarting on Suho's system. The world turned black. Am I dead? But it's strangely loud, screams and sounds of destruction. Is this the afterlife? To the irritating sound, Suho slowly opened his eyes. As he did so, bright light filtered through his eyelids, while at the same time a foul smell and piercing screams assaulted his senses. Excuse me, it was then. Someone picked him up and started running. The rough treatment brought Suho to his senses in an instant, and the face he saw was that of a man, no, a firefighter. The firefighter who had locked eyes with Suho spoke. Are you awake? An unexpected gate has appeared, so please be patient as we evacuate you. An unexpected gate? Why, I'm sure I was dead. Thinking he was dreaming, Suho quickly surveyed his surroundings. An overturned asphalt road, half-bent street lamps, and small green monsters about 100 centimeters tall roaming around below, goblins. Goblins, that wasn't the only thing that surprised him. He also saw a sign in the distance. It was the sign for a subway station he thought he would never see again. Sindoram Station, how was it still standing? It should have been destroyed and contaminated after the gate erupted. At that moment, a memory flashed through Suho's mind. The moment when he had first awakened as a player. Could this be it? Right then. Aheg, the firefighter's scream. At the same time, the firefighter collapsed forward, releasing his grip on Suho. He had been hit by an arrow fired by a goblin. Seeing this, the goblins sneered widely and approached the two of them. Please run. The fallen firefighter quickly got up and pulled a fire axe from his belt. But his arm was shaking from the arrow embedded in it. Seeing this, Suho stood up without hesitation and grabbed the axe from the firefighter's hand. I'll borrow this for a moment. Hey. What are you? But before the firefighter could stop him, Suho threw the axe, smashing the head of one of the approaching goblins. Crunch, the goblin collapsed, its skull shattered, and at that moment, congratulations. You have met the resurrection requirements. You are now a player. A message appeared in front of his eyes. It was the system window for players only. Seeing it, Suho let out an involuntary laugh. Everything was exactly the same as when he'd first awakened all those years ago. The system wants you to become even stronger. Please select the power you wish to pursue. Warrior, mage, archer, healer. The system prompts continued, right. After awakening as a player, you must choose a profession. Naturally, Suho tried to choose the warrior profession. After all, that's what he had chosen as a swordsman in the past. But I'll postpone my choice for now. Suho didn't decide right away. Instead, he picked up a nearby metal pipe and faced the approaching goblins. The fireman looked at him and asked, what are you doing? You need to run now. SHH. Suho pressed her finger to her lips. Run, why should I? The enemies are just little pests, goblins. Suho's eyes shone with a fierce light. If I'm not dreaming and I really have returned to the past, there are many things I need to confirm, but first, let's take care of these pests. Su-ho charged at them. A true craftsman never blames his tools. The same was true for Su-ho. Having reached the unity of body and sword, he could wield anything as a sword as long as he believed it to be one. But his body felt heavier than before. Although he had awakened as a player, he hadn't chosen a profession yet, nor did he have the same statistics as before. But what of it, his opponents were only goblins. Complaining about goblins would just be an excuse. At least that's what Su-ho thought. Closing the distance in an instant, Su-ho raised the metal rod and swung it down. Slice. A sharp cutting sound. Although it was only a blunt metal rod, a long gash appeared on the goblin's face. He'd used the edge of the metal rod to strike. Then, you have a high level of understanding of vertical slash. The system will now evaluate your skill. Congratulations, you have mastered vertical slash B. At the system prompt announcing his mastery of the vertical slash, Su-ho couldn't help but laugh. Chapter 2, right. Is there anyone else in this world who understands the vertical slash as well as I do? This phenomenon wasn't exactly unexpected. The system that had overtaken the world might look like a villain or some kind of evil game assistant, but surprisingly, it had an excellent understanding of individual skills and incredible observational abilities. It was exceedingly fair when it came to awarding rewards. In other words, as long as you showed a high level of understanding, the system would recognize it as a skill. The same logic applied to how I was able to master the formless sword. It wasn't as though he'd achieved the realm of unity with the divine sword by simply receiving a special skill. Ever since Su-ho chose the path of the sword, he had trained tirelessly, never taking a day off in his quest to become stronger. As a result, he not only became the world's greatest swordsman, but also received the system's recognition, ascending to the realm of divine sword unity and mastering a skill known as the formless sword. Still, Su-ho felt slightly disappointed with the system's evaluation. To be called the sword god and yet only receive a skill rank of B, he could understand it though. The system can't judge everything just by seeing it once. This was especially true for physical techniques. So no matter how exceptional the talent, the system rarely granted an initial skill rank higher than B. Of course, there were a few exceptions with special skills. For basic techniques, however, B was the usual starting point. If someone wanted a higher rank, they'd need to prove they deserved it. Perhaps it was a beginner's luck kind of thing. Su-ho swung the metal rod horizontally, slashing through the goblins around him. You have a high level of understanding of horizontal slash. The system is evaluating your skill. Congratulations. You have mastered horizontal slash B. After vertical slash, he gained the skill horizontal slash. Once again, the skill rank was B. Su-ho then thrust the rod forward like a spear. You have a high level of understanding of thrust. The system is evaluating your skill. Congratulations, you have mastered thrust B. Thrust was no different. Next, he swung the rod diagonally. You have a high level of understanding of diagonal slash. The system is evaluating your skill. Congratulations, you have mastered diagonal slash B. Each time he swung the rod, a skill was added. Right, this was indeed the world he remembered. Then it happened. You have a high level of understanding of swordsmanship. Vertical slash, horizontal slash, diagonal slash, and thrust skills have been integrated into basic swordsmanship. Congratulations, you have mastered basic swordsmanship B. With all three slashing skills and the thrust skill combined, they were automatically grouped under the name basic swordsmanship. It was only natural. The system worked according to certain rules, and when specific skills were gathered, it would automatically combine them for the sake of efficiency. Still, the rank was B, but this was better. A single integrated skill was easier to level up than multiple scattered skills. Basic swordsmanship. Seeing the term basic swordsmanship brought a slight smile to Su-ho's face as he remembered the past. Every famous swordsman started with basic swordsmanship before developing their own unique techniques. In Su-ho's case, his own style was called Su-ho's sword. Su-ho planned to recreate Su-ho's sword this time, too. Then again, there's no need to recreate it. My swordsmanship is already Su-ho's sword. Su-ho swung the rod a few more times, quickly dispatching the remaining goblins. Then a new system message appeared, level up. All stats increased by 1. You have earned 1 bonus stat. He had leveled up. He hadn't even chosen a class yet, but he was already leveling up. Seeing this, the firefighter asked in astonishment, were you a player? Not yet. Ignoring the firefighter's confused expression, Su-ho didn't bother looting the goblins' bodies. Right now, that wasn't what was important to him. Instead, he reopened the class selection window he had delayed earlier. Choose the power you wish to pursue. Warrior, mage, archer, healer. The class selection window appeared in front of him. Later, people would come to understand that this choice could be postponed. There was no penalty for waiting, and players often chose their classes after taking an aptitude test created by the association. Of course, Su-ho originally chose the path of the warrior, eventually becoming a swordsman and reaching the rank of sword god, so he was on the right path from the start. That's why he had initially intended to choose warrior again. He thought he could grow even faster by following the path he already knew, but then he shook his head. No matter how familiar he was with this path, when it truly mattered, the title of sword god proved weak and powerless. If only I had been able to cure all poison. After eating the heart of venom, known as the ultimate poison-resisting demon, he had believed that poison would never be an obstacle again. But Suzuki's all poison surpassed even his immunity. This led Su-ho's gaze to linger on the healer class. What if I could become a healer even stronger than Isabella? Of course, the healer class was often seen as weak. In reality, it had very few offensive skills. Most were geared toward defense, healing, and buffs. But Su-ho had just acquired swordsmanship skills effortlessly while fighting goblins. It was a testament to the system's fair ability to assess skill, so he began to wonder. If he could gain swordsmanship skills this way, was there any need to take the warrior path again? The answer was no. Skills learned based on talent are available regardless of class, just like how I recently acquired swordsmanship skills. However, most of the abilities healers gained didn't come from talent, they required the system's support to acquire. No matter how devout a person was, they couldn't heal patients with prayers alone. Finally, Su-ho made his decision. You have chosen healer. Do you truly wish to walk the path of the healer? In response to the system's prompt, Su-ho nodded. Immediately a light enveloped him. You are now a healer. You have been awarded 5 bonus stats. You have acquired Healing Light F. Congratulations on becoming a true player. The system wishes to give you a small gift. Please choose a weapon from the system's armory. Su-ho had officially become a healer. Simultaneously, the system opened its armory to provide him with a welcome gift. Naturally, Su-ho chose a sword. He selected a longsword with an ideal length and weight. You have acquired the beginner's sword. There was no need to check its stats. It was sure to have the lowest attack power and durability. Still, it was better than a metal rod. Next, Su-ho opened his status window. Status window open and Su-ho. Level 2 class, healer strength, 2 health, 2 mana, 2 perception, 2 bonus stats. 6 Su-ho stared at his pitiful status window. Having returned to the past, this outcome was expected. After a brief moment of thought, he allocated 2 points each to strength, health, and mana. The reason he allocated points to mana was simple. Healing skills also depend on mana. People often referred to healing skills as holy techniques, while mage skills were called magic. However, according to the system, holy techniques were actually called divine magic, so they were influenced by mana. This is why most healers invested all their stats into mana. Other stats would increase naturally with each level up. But Su-ho didn't follow this method. To me, healer is only a secondary role. My main focus is still swordsmanship. Later, once he advanced far enough as a healer, he could compensate for his lacking health and strength with buff skills. But that was a concern for the future. Even though Su-ho was a sword god from the future, he still needed a minimum stat foundation to regain his former power. After distributing his stats, Su-ho approached the firefighter who was staring at him in confusion. This might hurt, but bear with me. Gah! Without hesitation, Su-ho yanked the arrow from the firefighter's body. Blood spurted out and he immediately cast Healing Light on the wound. Casting Healing Light. The designated area is now healing. Healing Light, a basic skill possessed by all healers. Despite its simplicity, even high-level healers continued using it. The most powerful skills often had simple, straightforward effects. He recalled Holy Light, the skill Isabella had used. That skill too had started as Healing Light. Once the firefighter's wound was fully healed, he stared at Su-ho in astonishment and asked, "You're a healer too, as of now?" Well then, take care. Having healed the wound, Su-ho had no more reason to linger. He turned and looked toward the gate portal in the middle of the intersection at Sindoram Station. Goblins were still swarming the area, and it seemed that hunter players hadn't arrived yet. A good opportunity, he thought. For unpredictable gates like this, if he timed it right, he could enter before others. If my memory serves me, this gate should be manageable at my current level. When no one has entered a gate, it's possible to predict the gate's internal environment and difficulty based on the monsters it releases. Of course, Su-ho knew exactly what this gate was. In his past life, Su-ho had almost died because of it. This time, he decided to handle it personally. That gate had nearly taken his life before, making it something of an old nemesis. Slashing down the goblins approaching him, Su-ho stepped into the gate portal. Entering gate, loading gate information, green-red, entry conditions, unknown max players, unknown a brief system message. That was all the information available. Since no one had ever entered, the system provided no information on this unknown gate. Most people avoided uncharted gates. After all, entering blindly could lead to death if the difficulty turned out to be insurmountable. As Su-ho entered, the gate portal closed behind him. Now, only two outcomes would reopen it. Either the player inside would die or the gate would be cleared. But Suho had no intention of dying. Dream or reality, it didn't matter to him. This was the beginning of Ahn Su-ho's return as the sword god-rank civil servant. Chapter 3. As soon as he entered the gate, the surroundings changed. Suho glanced around the gate's interior and muttered, "It's exactly the same." It was just as he'd seen in the past. Thanks to that, Suho could fully realize that he had truly returned to the past. He looked around at the scattered corpses of goblins lying on the ground. The goblin corpses had green skin. They were typical goblins with slender limbs and bulging bellies. However, while goblins had been scattered around the gate's entrance, the ones inside had been found dead. Suho knew the reason for this. Inside, there were special goblins who reigned as predators over the normal ones. Suho began to move forward, taking slow, steady steps. After a short distance, squelch. The sound was what you'd expect when someone steps carelessly into mud. The terrain had changed. The ground was no longer solid but had turned into moist, sticky soil. The humidity increased as well. This environment was ideal for those creatures. And then he turned his head at the eerie cries and saw two red-skinned beasts approaching him. They've finally shown up. Suho recognized them. They were hobgoblins. They looked similar to goblins but with red skin, larger builds, and far more aggressive temperaments. Yes, this was the reason this gate was named Green-Red. It was due to the creature's skin color. Seeing them, Suho immediately drew his sword. He began to sprint directly toward them. Carrick, the hobgoblins, noticing Suho, tilted their heads in confusion. Despite making eye contact with them, he continued to approach, causing their minds to freeze for a moment. But soon they raised their weapons, ready for battle. Good, that's exactly how I wanted you to react. I knew you wouldn't run and would come straight at me. Suho looked at the levels displayed above their heads. Hobgoblin LV10, Hobgoblin LV12. Unlike the single-digit level goblins, these creatures had levels in the double digits. But so what? Whether their level was in double digits or single digits, they were still just goblins. Whether they were ordinary goblins or hobgoblins didn't matter much. To my eyes, they were all just insects. Suho launched himself toward them. The startled hobgoblins immediately thrust their weapons forward defensively, just as I thought. Suho, who had been diving forward, abruptly planted his left foot and halted his charge. At the same time, he bounced backward, creating a small gap between himself and the hobgoblins who had raised their weapons in defense. A feint. Suho used the gap he created to thrust his blade forward like a spear. The sword pierced perfectly into the eye of one of the hobgoblins. Krieg. Without stopping there, Suho twisted the sword in a full circle. With the level difference, my sword might not be able to slice through their skin. That's why he targeted an area with no defense, the eyes. Of course, if there was a massive level difference or the monster's attributes were extraordinary, this attack might not work. But against mere hobgoblins, please. Suho twisted his sword once more and then pulled it out. Ki! The hobgoblin, with its eye shredded, fell into a dazed state. It wasn't dead. It wouldn't die just from having its eye gouged out. But thanks to that, I now had a one-on-one situation. The other hobgoblin, startled, quickly withdrew its weapon and swung it at Suho. But too slow. Suho watched the hobgoblin's sword and dodged every swing with ease. He didn't counterattack. Suho wanted something from the creature. After several evasive maneuvers, it happened. You have a high understanding of evasion. The system is now assessing your talent. Congratulations, you have mastered Dodge B. Got it, I finally acquired one of the skills I'd been aiming for. The dodge skill was exactly what it sounded like, a skill that lets you evade nearby attacks as soon as you activate it. Having acquired dodge, Suho finally drew his sword. He stopped his evasive movements and began parrying the hobgoblin's attacks directly. Kirik. The hobgoblin had put all its strength into its attack, yet somehow its swings kept missing the target. It was bewildering. Enraged, the hobgoblin swung its weapon even harder, but the result was the same. No matter how many times it swung, Suho, standing in place, deflected each attack with a few simple parries. After some time, you have a high understanding of parrying. The system is now assessing your talent. Congratulations, you have mastered Parry B, parry, a skill to deflect the opponent's attack. Parrying was a skill with a long history, enough to have dedicated weapons for it. It was one of the essential skills to master. Parrying was the foundation for several other critical skills. Suho nodded to himself, satisfied. That's enough with this one. I'd managed to acquire 2 skills from my first encounter with a hobgoblin, but anything more seemed unlikely. The hobgoblin was exhausted, so I decided to finish it off. It was fun. Stab. Suho dodged the creature's attack once again, and this time thrust his sword into the side of its neck. The concentrated force at the tip of the sword pierced through the hobgoblin's neck, emerging on the other side. Suho twisted the blade again to maximize the damage. KRRRRGH, the hobgoblin, unable to withstand the pain, collapsed. You have defeated a hobgoblin. The system confirmed the creature's death. Su-ho then approached the other hobgoblin who was still writhing in pain. Stab, you have defeated a hobgoblin. There was no need to think further about this one. Su-ho plunged his sword into the back of its neck, putting it out of its misery. Your level has increased. All stats have increased by 1. You have received 1 bonus stat point. He had leveled up again. After distributing the bonus stat to Mana, Su-ho turned to continue forward. Or rather, he started to, but then he turned back and stabbed his sword into the chest area of the fallen hobgoblins. His sword struck something hard, and when he dug around, he pulled out a small magic stone. It was a D-grade magic stone. Well, I should at least collect these. Hunters made a living from the various loot obtained from monster corpses and other materials found on monsters. The most important source of income among these was magic stones. The value of a magic stone was usually determined by its size, and gems about the size of a thumbnail were typically classified as D-grade. Anything smaller would be E-grade. At this size, I could sell each one for about 50,000 won. In the past, I wouldn't have bothered with collecting magic stones, but now I had to. I'd returned to the past, and my past self had no money at all. Oh, and I deliberately skipped looting the goblins outside. Those low-level creatures rarely dropped magic stones, and even if they did, the stones were usually worthless. After collecting 2 magic stones, Su-ho continued moving forward. He encountered more hobgoblins and began swinging his sword against them. Outside the gate, there was chaos outside. It was rare for an unpredicted gate to appear in the middle of such a densely populated urban area. As a result, both private guild hunters and government-affiliated hunters had gathered there, rushing to resolve the situation. All the monsters around the gate had been cleared, so the only task left was to enter the gate and clear it from within. But to their surprise, someone was already inside, clearing the gate. A hunter, frowning, muttered when he found out. Who the hell went in without permission? Which guild are they from? Are they begging for a beating when they get out? We'll make sure they can never work in this field again. If they die in there, it'll be legendary. For unpredicted gates, unless there were special circumstances, entry was typically determined through on-site bidding, allowing hunters from the bidding organization to enter first. To hunters, gates were a precious source of income, therefore the order of entry was crucial. The moment even one person entered the gate, it would automatically close. If the gate were cleared, those left outside would be out of luck, like dogs chasing after chickens. Just then, a healer went in alone. Yes, I saw it with my own eyes. A civilian's report, but the report was odd. A healer entered the gate alone. The witness, a firefighter, insisted he saw it with his own eyes, even showing the arrow wound as evidence to support his claim. Are you sure there weren't any other hunters? Yes, he cut down a few goblins nearby, healed my wound, and then just went in alone. That doesn't make any sense. Judging from the level of monsters that had been dealt with, the gate didn't seem particularly difficult. Maybe just some green goblins, but still a healer going in alone, and cutting down goblins on his way in. Young Chalman, the gate management team leader dispatched by the Korean Hunter Association, furrowed his brows. Then he turned to his subordinates and instructed them, "Stay on standby here and report immediately if there's any change in the gate. Report the moment anyone comes out of it." "Yes, understood," the subordinates responded loudly. As he heard their voices, Young Chalman put a cigarette in his mouth and thought, they must have gone in recklessly without understanding the situation. Who would be crazy enough to enter a gate alone as a healer? Click click. Young Chalman lit his cigarette. He assumed nothing would come of this, but if by any chance this was more than nothing and the healer actually cleared the gate alone, then I'll make sure we recruit that person no matter what. Young Chalman was serious. On the surface, the nation's safety seemed to be maintained by the government and private guilds together, but in reality the government was at the mercy of private guilds. The reason was simple. To control the guilds, the government needed enough power, in other words, talented players. But unfortunately, the government couldn't pay as well as the private guilds. Although the government offered a substantial salary compared to other agencies, it was still nowhere near what private guilds could provide with all their additional benefits. As a result, government-affiliated hunters had earned the nickname Patriotic Pay Warriors. Of course, despite the nickname, government hunters, especially field hunters, were genuinely dedicated people filled with patriotism and selflessness. Without that mindset, they wouldn't be working here. For this reason, it was rare to recruit hunters to the association, but Young Chalman hadn't given up. After all, there were still occasional cases of hunters who joined as government employees. Young Chalman picked up his phone and made a call somewhere. Chapter 4. Status window, Ahn Su-ho, level 8, class healer, strength 12, vitality 12, mana 12, perception 8, bonus stat 0. Su-ho checked his status window. It had been some time since he entered the gate. Already he had reached level 8. I think it's about time I meet him. Su-ho knew everything about this gate. Yet he had deliberately delayed his encounter with the gate's master and boss monster. After all, Absolute strength ultimately came from levels, and unpredicted gates like this one were rarely monopolized. It was better to level up as much as possible now, but hobgoblins were hardly visible anymore. He had nearly wiped them out. After a bit more scouting, Su-ho found a small group of hobgoblins. All right. After finishing them off, I'll call for him. By now he'd earned nearly all the experience he needed here. Thinking that, Su-ho picked up one of the swords left by the hobgoblins and aimed it at them. Then he threw it. You have a high understanding of throwing. The system is now assessing your talent. Congratulations, you have mastered throwing B. At the same time he acquired the throwing skill, it was no longer surprising. Crack. The sword struck dead center between the brows of one hobgoblin. You have defeated a hobgoblin. The hobgoblin died instantly. That was the beginning of the fight. 4 hobgoblins remained. They quickly identified the direction the sword had come from and charged towards Su-ho. All right, come at me. Su-ho didn't dodge. At level 8, he had already secured most of the skills necessary for movement. When the distance between Su-ho and the hobgoblins was reduced to just a few steps, Su-ho's figure suddenly vanished. Kirik. The hobgoblins were startled, seeing that Su-ho, who should have been right in front of them, had disappeared. But it wasn't because he'd used a stealth skill, a sharp slicing sound. The hobgoblins turned their heads in shock, but by then it was too late. Using his exceptional footwork, Su-ho had moved behind them and was slicing through them with his sword. You have defeated a hobgoblin. You have defeated a hobgoblin. You have defeated a hobgoblin. With precise strikes to their necks, he killed 3 of the 4. The remaining one clutched its injured neck and trembled on the ground. Su-ho kicked the sword the fallen hobgoblin had dropped, sending it skittering away and motioned behind him with his chin. Go. It wasn't a mistake. Su-ho was letting it go for a single reason. It would lead its leader to him. That way, he wouldn't have to go through the trouble of tracking him down. This method worked well with gates that didn't have any special conditions, a trick he'd picked up with time. The hobgoblin hesitated at Su-ho's gesture, then began to retreat cautiously before bolting away. It won't be long now. After sending it off, Su-ho calmly gathered the magic stones. A short while later, thud, thud, thud. It sounded like an earthquake, but it was the heavy footsteps of countless goblins. These were undoubtedly the ones he had been waiting for. How many are there? The gate's master and boss monster, the hobgoblin chief, liked to move in groups, as was typical of goblins. In other words, he never traveled without at least 20 subordinates. A moment later, the bushes parted and they appeared. 1, 2, 3, 4. There were roughly 30 of them. Among them, Su-ho spotted the hobgoblin he had sent as a messenger. Its wounds had clotted and it was sneering slyly from within the group. Cute. It didn't anger him. Even if an insect was sly, it was still just an insect. Su-ho's interest was focused elsewhere, specifically on the hobgoblin chief standing haughtily in the back. It was 1.5 times larger than the others, and it had the highest level. As the leader, that was to be expected. But Su-ho didn't feel any fear. Though it was a boss monster, it was just a creature playing leader among the insects. No matter how large a bug got, it was still just a bigger bug. In fact, Su-ho was pleased to meet it. There had been a time he'd nearly died because of this gate. I nearly died to the monsters that came out of the gate. At that time, Su-ho hadn't yet awakened. He had almost died to the goblins that emerged outside the gate. So in a way, this was his chance to get revenge for that moment. Su-ho and the hobgoblins stood in a tense standoff. Then, Kirik. At the hobgoblin chief's command, the hobgoblins charged at Su-ho all at once. Yes, come at me like that. He hadn't expected a one-on-one duel. Expecting monsters to have manners or honor was laughable, so Su-ho charged in as well. When fighting a large group in an open space, it was better to close the distance and assert control than to run. As he met the closest hobgoblin, Su-ho used his momentum to drive his sword straight through its brow. You have defeated a hobgoblin. It was an instant kill. With the sword still embedded, Su-ho twisted it in a sweeping motion. The 3 goblins rushing at him next were slashed across their faces. Kayak, Kururuk, Kayak, they weren't instantly killed, but they were incapacitated. However, there were still many goblins left. The bloodthirsty creatures swung their weapons at Su-ho without hesitation, but all they hit was empty air. Kayak, Su-ho had been right in front of them, but now he was gone. At that moment, over here, his voice came from behind. Before they even realized they'd been flanked, their bodies collapsed. One hobgoblin tried to stab a spear into the empty space, only to skewer its comrade instead. The hobgoblin was taken aback but quickly withdrew its weapon to attack again, or it would have if another wild strike from a nearby goblin hadn't hit it first. Kayak, Kairak, the battlefield was pure chaos, a brawl. Su-ho barely moved from his position, skillfully using limited space to weave around and exploit the gaps in their attacks. This way, he caused their attacks to miss and led them to hit each other instead. Before long, alongside the notifications for hobgoblin defeats, another notification appeared. You have a high understanding of sidestepping enemy attacks. The system is now assessing your talent. Congratulations. You have mastered sidestep B, sidestep. Finally, he'd gained the skill he wanted. Then you have a high overall understanding of footwork. Dodge and sidestep are now combined as basic footwork. Congratulations. You have mastered basic footwork B. By system logic, dodge and sidestep had been merged into a single skill, basic footwork. Now I have all the basics: swordsmanship, footwork, and parrying. The foundation for Su-ho's original sword technique, the Su-ho sword, was complete. All that remained was diligent practice to gain further system recognition. After closing the notification window, Su-ho switched his stance and started moving aggressively. In moments, the hobgoblins who had been stumbling around fell like autumn leaves. You have defeated a hobgoblin. You have defeated a hobgoblin. You have defeated a hobgoblin. Most of them had already injured each other, so all he had to do was finish them off. So he targeted vital points to end them swiftly. Soon, nearly all the hobgoblins were dealt with, leaving only the hobgoblin chief, still observing with a grim expression in front of Su-ho. At the moment the last of its underlings fell, your level has increased. All stats have increased by 1. You have received 1 bonus stat point. His level had gone up again, now level 9. Su-ho allocated the bonus stat to mana, then raised his sword toward the hobgoblin chief. Then he tilted his blade in a taunting motion. Carrick, did the taunt work? A wave of fury spread across the creature's once stoic face. Su-ho looked at its level. Hobgoblin Chief LV20, its level was more than twice his own, but so what? Although level could be a measure of strength that depended on the opponent, what did level matter against an insect? Grabbing its oversized axe, the Hobgoblin Chief charged at Su-ho. Graarg, the Hobgoblin Chief uses fear. You are in a fear state, your body is immobilized. The Hobgoblin Chief's fear skill activated. As monster levels increase, many can use this skill, but at low levels, only bosses or named monsters typically have it. Fear causes muscle paralysis, overwhelming the target through level and stat pressure, leaving Su-ho with no way to evade. But Su-ho remained calm, raising his sword and stabbing his own palm. Thunk. The blade pierced his hand, sending sharp pain coursing through his body. You have escaped from the fear state. An incredible effect occurred. As soon as he inflicted pain, the debuff effect of fear disappeared. Unfazed, Su-ho withdrew his sword. Imposing physical pain is one of the best ways to break free from mental debuffs like fear. It's basic knowledge. Of course, it would be preferable to have a skill for mental protection or an item with such effects, but Su-ho had just returned to the past with nothing at hand. Now free from fear, Su-ho sidestepped the chief's axe swing with fluid precision. At the same time, he cast Light of Healing. You are using Light of Healing. The designated area is starting to heal. With the wound on his left hand, he used his left hand to channel the skill, feeling his mana drain as the injury began to heal. Since it was a deep puncture wound, full recovery would take a while, but that was fine. He'd invested extra bonus stats into mana for this very reason. With Light of Healing still active in his hand, Su-ho raised his sword in his other hand. Using his newly acquired footwork, he rapidly closed the distance between himself and the Hobgoblin Chief. Stab, he drove the sword deep into the creature's thigh. Kraag, the chief's piercing scream echoed through the area, Chapter 5, but he hadn't pierced deep enough. The Hobgoblin Chief's hide was indeed thick and the level difference was a whopping 2-fold. But that was fine. Su-ho actually hoped the creature would last as long as possible. Whoosh! The chief's axe swung down at him and Su-ho bent his waist to avoid it. Then he sprung up like a coil, slicing along the beast's inner ribs. SSSHK, once again the wound was shallow. That thick hide was the culprit. Unbothered, Su-ho moved around, slashing again. Swish, another cut, thunk, and another stab. He repeated this process over and over, dozens of times. Su-ho continued circling the chief, never moving too broadly. He simply stayed close, creating wound after wound on the creature's body. The Hobgoblin Chief grew furious, thrashing desperately as if trying to catch its own tail, but none of its attacks landed on Su-ho. The stench of blood hung thick in the air. Combined with the humidity, the smell of the creature's sweat mingled with the blood, creating a stifling odor. But Su-ho wasn't fazed. He gazed at the creature, now breathing heavily, and mocked it further. Is that all you've got? Grrrrr. The monster didn't understand human speech. Yet Su-ho was sure it understood his meaning. Taunting wasn't limited to words. Enraged, the Hobgoblin Chief let out a bellow and swung its axe at him once more. But this move, too, was overly broad. Su-ho effortlessly twisted his body to evade the blow and thrust the beginner's sword forward like a spear, aiming for an exposed gap. At last, the blade punctured through what seemed to be an impenetrable hide, ripping through the thigh muscle in a fatal stab. Squish! Su-ho withdrew his sword immediately and a fountain of blood spurted from the chief's thigh. At that moment, you have a high understanding of the thrust technique. The system is reassessing your talent. Congratulations, your thrust skill has been upgraded to a rank. The piercing power of basic swordsmanship B has increased by 50%. His thrust skill had risen from B to a rank, significantly enhancing his swordsmanship's piercing power. Finally, things were falling into place. But there was no time for celebration. Su-ho suppressed his smile and focused on his next attack. And that was just the beginning. He resumed circling the creature and continued thrusting his sword. Thanks to the upgraded thrust skill, it became much easier to create new wounds. Greg, the hobgoblin chief screamed in pain, the sound escalating into another fear. The chief's roar was imbued with fear, as a boss monster's skill often carried additional effects. But this time Su-ho felt only a prickling in his ears, nothing more. Of course, the fear effect only applies once. Su-ho chuckled coldly to himself. Conquered fears never consume you twice. From then on, Su-ho began treating the chief like a bull in a ring, piercing its body repeatedly. Dozens of stabs later, the monster's entire body was riddled with holes, blood pouring from every opening. Thud, eventually it fell to one knee, but it wasn't dead. Of course it wasn't. Su-ho had avoided every vital spot on purpose. Standing over the kneeling creature, Su-ho flicked the blood off his sword and muttered, "Healing light," casting healing light. The designated area is beginning to heal, healing light. A fundamental skill for healers that heals a selected area. Su-ho's left hand, which he'd pierced earlier to escape fear, had already healed, and not a single one of the chief's attacks had landed on him. Yet he cast healing light once more for the hobgoblin chief's benefit. "You're not allowed to die just yet." It was as simple as that. There was one more skill Su-ho wanted to extract from the creature. It was a skill that would be even harder to acquire later, so he had to get it now, however tedious it might be. The hobgoblin chief, unaware of Su-ho's intentions, looked up in confusion at its healer. What was happening? Why was he healing it? As their gazes met, the chief could see no malice, no sympathy, no thrill for torture in Su-ho's dry, hollow eyes. As a beast that relied on instinct, the hobgoblin chief understood the look in Su-ho's eyes. Boredom, nothing but boredom. It was as if the creature were nothing more than a tool in Su-ho's hands. A chill ran down the monster's spine as it grasped this unsettling reality. Once the chief's wounds had mostly healed, Su-ho drew his sword again. "Let's start over." Bang, Su-ho kicked the hobgoblin chief in the chest, sending it sprawling backward. Krag, enraged, the hobgoblin chief charged at Su-ho once more. How much time had passed? Even after all this time, the hobgoblin chief was still alive. There was only one reason for that. Healing light. It was due to Su-ho's repeated healing. He'd spent quite some time here and achieved notable progress. His basic swordsmanship, basic footwork, and parry skills had all advanced to a rank. And when Su-ho lifted his hand to cast healing light, the hobgoblin chief visibly trembled with fear. At last, its primal spirit had been broken, but that wasn't enough. Su-ho cast healing light on it again, ignoring its fear. After patching up the chief's wounds, Su-ho kicked its chest again, sending it sprawling. Thud, the hobgoblin chief collapsed. If things went as usual, it would spring up and charge again, but tremble. Surprisingly, the hobgoblin chief didn't get up. It lay there, curled up on the ground, trembling uncontrollably. Its spirit had shattered so completely that it lost the will to fight. Seeing this, Su-ho smiled. This should do. Breaking a monster's spirit is harder than it sounds, especially when dealing with a boss monster, but Su-ho had managed. The method was simple. There's no bravery in the face of pain. Inflict enough physical harm until the creature's will breaks. Of course, this method doesn't work on all monsters, but for this particular one, it did. Despite being a mere goblin, the hobgoblin chief had the resilience and mental strength of a boss monster. Any missing stamina could be replenished with healing skills. Su-ho approached the now cowering chief and gave it a light nudge with his foot, meeting its gaze. The moment their eyes locked, the chief's head drooped even lower and it curled up tighter. Then a message appeared. "You possess such overwhelming presence that you have broken even the boss monster's spirit. The system is reassessing your talent. Congratulations, you have acquired the skill Intimidate A." At last, Su-ho had obtained one of the essential skills he'd sought, Intimidate. Intimidate was a skill not just anyone could learn. When activated, it could suppress an opponent's spirit to varying degrees. And of course, it's also a defensive skill against all sorts of mental attacks. That's why Su-ho wanted it. Someone with natural charisma doesn't easily break, and Intimidate draws on that strength. In essence, Intimidate is heavily influenced by inherent talent, though you can learn it with a bit of trickery, as I did. That's why Su-ho had to acquire it as early as possible. As he progressed, monsters would become so fiercely loyal to their instincts that they'd rather die than be subdued. Having gained Intimidate, Su-ho raised his sword. It was time for the final blow. But there was still one more thing he wanted to extract from the chief before finishing it off. Gripping his sword with both hands, Su-ho steadied his breath. Then, without a moment's hesitation, he sliced the creature's neck. SSHHK, the chief's neck was cleanly severed thanks to the improved cutting power from his A-ranked swordsmanship skill. Right then, another message appeared. "You have a high understanding of beheading. The system is reassessing your talent. Congratulations, you have acquired the skill Decapitate B. Su-ho grinned at the message. The last skill he'd wanted from the hobgoblin was Decapitate, which grants extra effects when beheading. With this, my work here is done. As the chief's severed head hit the ground, a final series of notifications appeared. You have defeated the hobgoblin chief. The gate has been cleared. You have successfully solo cleared the gate. The MVP of this gate clear is Ahn Su-ho. Additional experience awarded for MVP achievement. You have received 1 bonus stat point. Your level has increased. All stats have increased by 1. You have received an additional bonus stat point. Suho's level had increased again. In addition to the experience from defeating the hobgoblin chief, he'd gained extra rewards for clearing the gate and achieving the MVP title. Alongside the system notifications, a portal appeared before him, leading back to the outside world, but the system alerts weren't finished yet. You have reached level 10. The system wishes for you to grow even stronger. The system grants you greater power as a reward. You have received 5 additional bonus stat points. All healer class skills have been upgraded by 1 rank. You have learned Cure E. Reaching double digits in level brought new perks. The rewards included 5 bonus stat points, a new skill, and an upgrade in all healer-exclusive skills. Of course, for now, the only healer skill he had was Healing Light, but this was enough at his current stage. Seeing the notifications, Su-ho nodded. Finally, I've gained Cure. Cure was a skill specialized in treating illnesses, which at its peak could even counter the all-poison that had once brought him to the brink of death. This skill was, therefore, one he welcomed the most. After distributing the bonus stat points to strength, stamina, and mana, Su-ho closed his status screen. Rather than stepping into the portal immediately, he turned toward the hobgoblin chief's body and drove his sword into its chest. The tip of his sword struck something hard inside. It was a magic stone. Nice size. Judging by its size, this stone was likely at least C-grade. After gathering the magic stone and other valuable materials, Su-ho finally approached the portal. By now, they should be waiting at the entrance. Now Su-ho knew with certainty that this wasn't a dream but reality. With that assurance, he felt the urge to see a familiar face, the person who had once been closest to him. Chapter 6. Whoa, the gate's shaking. No way, wait, is the gate line disappearing? Does that mean the gate has been cleared? When a gate is cleared, the visible gate line outside crumbles. The people outside, who relied on the line to know the gate's status, could only stare in shock as it began to vanish. It was understandable. The sudden appearance of an unanticipated gate rarely resulted in a successful first clear. Seeing this, the association staff hurriedly reported to team leader Jiang Chalmin. Team leader, the gate's been cleared. I can see that. Jiang Chalmin's eyes grew as wide as saucers as he watched the situation unfold in real time. According to the firefighters, the person who entered the gate was a healer, and he had gone in alone. But he had cleared an unanticipated gate. Naturally, the crowd couldn't help but murmur, all eyes fixed on the gate. And it wasn't just Jiang Chalmin who knew this fact. Before long, reporters who'd caught wind of the news began to gather swiftly, and once the gate line completely collapsed, an exit portal formed. And from within, a single silhouette gradually appeared. It was Su-ho. He's out. What? He really came out alone. No way did that guy clear it solo. The sunlight was blinding. As Su-ho stepped out of the portal, he squinted, surveying the crowd that had swarmed around him like bees. Quite the turnout. However, no one could approach Su-ho just yet. Around the portal, a boundary line formed by the system prevented anyone but the gate clearer from crossing. Excuse me, look over here. Who are you? I'm a scout from the Immortal Guild. I'm from the H-Warring Guild. People clamored for his attention beyond the boundary, cameras flashing, voices raised, desperate to catch Su-ho's eye. But he didn't spare them a glance. Instead, he scanned the crowd, searching for someone. After a moment, he found them. Approaching the man who'd been staring at him, Su-ho stopped at the boundary line and asked, "Your team leader Jiang Chalmin from the Korean Hunter Association, right?" Jiang Chalmin's face displayed genuine surprise at being addressed. "Pardon? Ah yes, I am Jiang Chalmin, team leader of gate management at the association. But do you know me?" Taken aback, Jiang Chalmin hurried to introduce himself. Seeing this, Su-ho quietly smiled, thinking to himself, "It's good to see you again." Su-ho knew who Jiang Chalmin was. In fact, they were more than just acquaintances, they were quite close. After all, Jiang Chalmin would one day become the association president, leading the Korean Hunter Association. I've never met anyone as dedicated and self-sacrificing as Chalmin. If this really was the past he remembered, Su-ho had already decided he'd work with Jiang Chalmin this time too. After all, he planned to join the association and become a hunter civil servant again. Su-ho spoke, "Let's discuss the details back at the association. I needed to stop by to get my hunter license issued anyway." "Oh right. Wait, what? A hunter license?" So he was a newly awakened player. Jiang Chalmin blinked in disbelief. Back at the association, after verifying Su-ho's identity, Jiang Chalmin was left speechless. They say assumptions can get you in trouble, and it turned out that Su-ho was indeed an unregistered hunter. And not only that, he was a healer, commonly regarded as the weakest of the four job classes. This is beyond absurd, so he'd only recently awakened. And in that condition, as a healer, he had cleared an unanticipated gate on his own. It was getting more and more preposterous. But everything was true, and Su-ho calmly proceeded with the aptitude tests for his hunter license issuance. When all the tests were complete, Jiang Chulmin reviewed the results and was once again stunned. What is this? Looking at Su-ho's test results, Jiang Chulmin wore an expression of disbelief. All of Su-ho's test scores, including his occupational aptitude and innate job potential, came out as completely average. Actually, his scores are a bit below average for a healer. Judging by the results alone, Su-ho should have pursued the path of a warrior or an archer instead of a healer, but Su-ho was undoubtedly a healer. He'd personally witnessed Su-ho using healing light and cure. How on earth am I supposed to explain this? Jiang Chulmin looked up from the test results and asked Su-ho, "If you don't mind me asking, what did you do before?" Su-ho paused to recollect and replied, "I was a university student." Was. "So you're no longer enrolled?" "Yes, I dropped out," he remembered clearly. The day he was swept into the green-red gate was the same day he'd submitted his withdrawal forms to his school. The reason he dropped out, nothing much. Su-ho had been a physical education major, but he found the rigid hierarchy and oppressive atmosphere, what they called discipline, highly unreasonable. So despite having worked hard to get into the school, he left without hesitation. Nodding, Jiang Chulmin asked, "Were you a medical or nursing student by any chance?" "No, I was in physical education." "Physical education? Then why did you choose to be a healer?" From Jiang Chulmin's perspective, it made no sense. If Su-ho had been a med student, it might have made sense for him to pick the healer class, but a PE major. Shouldn't he have chosen to be a warrior or an archer instead? Su-ho shrugged nonchalantly and answered, "I hate being in pain, so I chose to be a healer." "What? I'm serious." The truth was, his decision to become a healer had partly been due to his trauma, so his answer wasn't entirely off. But at that moment, his response only left Jiang Chulmin even more dumbfounded. After taking a breath to calm himself, Jiang Chulmin continued with his questions. "So you really did clear the gate on your own?" "Yes, you saw me exit the portal alone, didn't you?" "Well, yes, but would you mind sharing a bit about the clearing process? When monsters appeared, I fought them. I killed everything that attacked me, and eventually I cleared it. For reference, the monsters inside were hobgoblins." "Hobgoblins?" "Yes." With that, Su-ho took out the hobgoblin leader's head he'd collected alongside the magic crystal and placed it on the desk. Jiang Chulmin's eyes widened in shock. It was real. It's the head of the boss monster, the hobgoblin chief." Su-ho then set the magic crystal on the desk as well. "And this is the magic crystal it had." Whoa, the head and the crystal, there was no denying this irrefutable evidence. While Jiang Chulmin struggled to process this, Su-ho spoke up first. "I can guess why you're surprised. Why a PE major chose to be a healer instead of a warrior or archer, and how a recently awakened civilian managed to solo clear an unanticipated gate, right? Well, yes, I can't deny it. Everything I've told you is the truth. I killed the monsters I saw, chose a beginner's sword because it looked familiar, and picked the healer class because I don't like pain. And now that I'm getting my license, I plan to continue working as a hunter. Can I ask why you decided on that? I hate gates and monsters. If you check my records, you'll see I lost my entire family during the gate shock incident. Sure, I got a scholarship and military exemption, but what good is all that when my family is gone? Is that why you went into the gate alone?" "Yes. It was a bit impulsive, but I saw it as a way to vent my feelings. I just submitted my dropout form to my school, which I'd left because of the oppressive hierarchy in the department. I had a lot of pent-up frustration." Hearing Su-ho's story, Jiang Chulmin nodded quietly. Listening to Su-ho, he could sense how much anger he'd been holding back all this time. Su-ho continued, "I also thought being in PE might help if I ever awakened. I'd never had formal training with weapons, but it seemed relevant, and now that I've become a player, I think dropping out was the right choice." Jiang Chulmin listened attentively. Seeing his sincerity, Su-ho decided it was time to drop a hint that might pique his interest. "That doesn't mean I intend to live consumed by anger. Anger won't bring my family back." The shift in tone made Jiang Chulmin raise his eyebrows slightly. "So, I plan to work as a hunter, but I want to focus on people's safety, for example with the Korean Hunter Association." Jiang Chulmin's eyes widened as if lightning had struck. This was entirely unexpected. And with it came a growing curiosity about Su-ho. "If you join the association, that means working as a civil servant hunter. Are you okay with that? You might have looked it up already, but our pay isn't." "Well, it's significantly lower than that of hunters in private guilds." "I know, but the association holds exclusive rights to clear unanticipated gates and has authority over player crimes. I want to work for the greater good, not for personal wealth." Ah, Jiang Chulmin couldn't help but let out an exclamation of admiration. Many claimed altruistic motives during interviews, but most were drawn by the stability and the option to earn without having to face gates. But Su-ho was different. As he'd said, hunters with the association held priority for clearing unanticipated gates, but most preferred to sell this right to private guilds. Why? Because it was dangerous. Most hunters aren't eager to risk themselves for a modest paycheck to clear a gate, he thought, and that was why his heart pounded with excitement. Trying to contain himself, he asked, "Then, if you were to work with the association, where would you like to be stationed?" "I want to be in the field as much as possible. Ideally in gate-clearing operations." Hearing this, Jiang Chulmin almost felt faint. Chapter 7, right, why worry about other concerns? Most public servants would do anything to avoid going into a gate, but if someone willingly volunteered for a field position, that was all the more welcome. This job didn't bring much material reward. It required true patriotism and selflessness to endure. Suppressing a cheer, Jiang Chulmin responded, "Understood. The registration process and identity verification are complete." Although this wasn't exactly intended as an interview, but somehow it feels like it turned into one. When people talk, sometimes the conversation just flows that way. Haha, indeed. So all that's left is the aptitude test, written exam, and practical test. After checking his phone, Jiang Chulmin added, "You're aware the exam registration period has already closed for this year, right? But if you'd like, I can arrange a special registration for you." "Is that possible?" "It's not illegal or anything. It's an official rule, and since you solo cleared an unanticipated gate, I can get approval from the higher-ups. However, the exam happens to be tomorrow." He glanced at Su-ho, hesitant to suggest it too eagerly. After all, preparing for both a written and practical exam on just one day's notice could be quite demanding. The field and exams are two entirely different things. Sure, having some prior knowledge helps, but if he's clueless about the specifics, it might be tough. Awkwardly smiling, Jiang continued, "It might be difficult. Otherwise, there's always the test next month. No, please register me for tomorrow." "Pardon, I'd like to take the chance for the experience, so will I be taking the aptitude test tomorrow as well?" "Oh no. You can do the aptitude test today if you're up for it. Is that okay?" "Yes, that's fine, but could I ask you to handle these first? I'm low on registration funds." Su-ho pointed to the hobgoblin's head and magic crystal, prompting Jiang to grab them right away. "Of course, if you start your aptitude test, I'll handle the sale and deposit the funds immediately. We can also cover your registration fee if you'd like." "No, thank you. I'd rather avoid any possible misunderstandings down the line. I'll pay for it myself." Jiang, visibly moved by Su-ho's response, quickly agreed. "Understood, I'll get everything ready right away, so please wait just a moment." Rising quickly from his seat, Jiang's brisk movements made Su-ho chuckle to himself. Everything proceeded smoothly. While Su-ho took his aptitude test, Jiang, using his authority, handled the sale of the hobgoblin head and magic crystal with a tax exemption, depositing the proceeds, about 3 million won, directly to Su-ho's account. When Su-ho finished his aptitude test, he asked, "Team leader, could I request one more favor?" "What kind of favor?" "I believe there's a library in the association's basement. It has reference materials and guides relevant to tomorrow's exam, if I'm not mistaken. If you allow me, I'd like to prepare there." "Oh, that's all. Of course you're welcome to. Thank you." The basement library was intended for the association staff's personal development. Given that Su-ho might one day become his subordinate, granting his request was a given. The library, though technically a resource for staff, was rarely used, with only a few librarians whiling away their time. It was, in essence, a forgotten space. Upon arrival, Su-ho immediately recognized the familiar smell of the staff library. "It's been a while since I was here." Few people ever used the place, and the librarians barely took notice of anyone who entered. Jiang lowered his voice and said, "You won't need a staff card to leave, so feel free to stay as long as you need." "Yes, thank you. Then I'll be off to handle some work. Best of luck on tomorrow's exam." After offering his encouragement, Jiang exited. Once alone, Su-ho began scanning the library. Now, where was it? He'd come here seeking a hidden skill concealed in the staff library. It was a skill related to memory retention, something he would have normally dismissed as unnecessary, but given recent events, he needed it more than anyone. Human memory has its limits. As far as he knew, he was the only one who had returned to the past, meaning he had no one to turn to, no one to rely on. Thus, he needed his memory to be as accurate as possible. He could recall significant events, but as a human, some minor details were fuzzy. That's why he was here. Su-ho moved purposefully toward the unknown books section. These were books found inside gates from other realms, their contents unreadable, labeled as junk items. Looking at the random assortment of books, Su-ho couldn't help but recall some memories. These were a pain back then. These unknown books were indeed troublesome. They were flame-resistant, difficult to discard, and given their origin, required some level of management, which led them to the association's library. Most will be stored in a warehouse eventually. It didn't take long for Suho to find the book he was looking for. It was the largest in the section. Its size made it easy to spot. Taking it in hand, he walked to a quiet corner of the library. Even though he couldn't read its title, this book held a remarkable secret. After ensuring he was alone, he opened the book and rested his head against it. Minutes later, he heard the system notification. Welcome to the Library of Memories. The Library of Memories is intrigued by your story. Would you like to donate your story to the Library of Memories? Suho's lips curled into a smile. This was the Library of Memories' hidden skill he'd come for. As he withdrew his head from the book, he read the system messages with a grin. So it's real. The Library of Memories was akin to a photographic memory skill, though one could call it a curse of memory. After all, human resilience is partly due to the ability to forget pain. But for Suho, the Library of Memories was essential. It allowed him to recover all his memories perfectly. As Suho nodded, the system processed the next step. Your story has been donated. The Library of Memories is delighted by your donation and offers a gift in return. You have acquired the Library of Memories A. The Library of Memories has started recording and cataloging your memories. Just then, a gust of wind surged through his mind, and an image of a vast library formed within his consciousness. The library was empty at first, but as the wind swept through, countless sheets of blank paper appeared, filling with records of Suho's memories, binding into books and stacking themselves onto shelves. It was mesmerizing, and once the library was fully stocked with books, the system message appeared. The Library of Memories is now open. Suho now had complete access to the Library of Memories. Library of Memories. Rank. Stores every memory you see or hear in a library that you can access at any time. The Library of Memories may recommend relevant information when necessary. The description was simple but effective. The effect was all that mattered. Suho thought of the person who had first told him about the Library of Memories. She was the legendary secretary of Hexagon Guild, the top guild in the industry. Suho had learned about the skill by chance over a meal. Did you know, Suho, I actually used to work for the association. Really? You secretary? Yes, back when I was preparing to switch jobs, I was studying alone in the library. She had jokingly mentioned how she acquired the skill, but it had left a strong impression on him. I couldn't find a comfortable place to rest, so I grabbed a random book to use as a pillow, and that turned out to be the condition for discovering the skill. He'd been dumbfounded at the time. Who would have thought she'd acquire an A-rank skill that way? Some people are just born lucky. She must have been one of them. With her newfound memory skill, she quickly rose through the ranks and joined Hexagon Guild, known for their memory-based qualifications. Once there, her enhanced memory and the skills recommendation feature allowed her to manage all the guild members meticulously, and she eventually became the industry's most renowned secretary. Thinking he should treat her to a meal someday, Suho returned the book to its place. With the Library of Memories acquired, no additional skills would be unlocked, but the book remained. Now that I have the skill, let's give it a light test. Suho tested it by recalling the events before his death. In observer mode, he could vividly see his past, including the betrayal by his former allies, which brought a surge of anger. Good, now I have a new target. I won't let myself forget this rage. Truly, the Library of Memories. Simply recalling his memories reawakened the fury of that moment, solidifying his resolve. But then, the system has recognized your achievement in reaching the realm of transcendence and grants you an opportunity to become even stronger. Rebooting the system for player Ahn Su-ho. Within his fading memories, Suho saw the unexpected system message. Chapter 8. What is this? The system notifications were unfamiliar. These messages had appeared moments before Suho's death, yet he had no recollection of ever seeing them. Is the system the reason I was sent back to the past? He hadn't known. When these notifications appeared, he had been nearly unconscious, hovering on the brink of death. I remember reaching the peak of the unity of sword and soul, mastering my first SS rank skill. But transcendence, the system had clearly stated. The system recognizes your achievement of transcendence and grants you an opportunity to grow even stronger. Rebooting the system for player Ahn Su-ho. It was because he had been the first to achieve the realm of transcendence that he was being given another chance. So was his return to the past not a coincidence? It seemed that way. This realization confirmed that everything he had experienced was real, not some dream or illusion. Good. He had slowly begun to accept that he had returned to the past. After all, that was why he sought out the Library of Memories. But acceptance was one thing, certainty was another. There had been no undeniable proof. Now that the system itself was vouching for this reality, there was no more room for doubt. All right, let's do this. The important thing was that he had returned to the past, which allowed him to prepare for the calamities he knew would come. With this knowledge, Suho solidified his resolve to rejoin public service. With his foreknowledge and the backing of national authority, he might be able to end the Gates crisis far faster than in his previous life. And I'll keep an eye on those traitors too. But to do all this, he needed ample preparation. Armed with the library of memories, Suho sat down and quietly began drafting a plan for the future. Studying for tomorrow's written exam, why would he worry when he had the library of memories? Even without it, passing the written exam would have been easy. Suho began organizing his thoughts. With a rough plan in place, Suho left the association and immediately hailed a taxi to Paju. Now that he had resolved to become a civil servant again, he intended to maximize his efficiency. After a while, the taxi pulled into Paju, and Suho arrived at none other than Nexus, the country's most prestigious and largest private hunter academy. The academy was massive, like a small town, and Suho nodded as he saw the banner listing successful candidates' names displayed on the outer wall. Nothing attracted new students like proof of success. That banner was Suho's first target. Inside the academy, Suho went to the front desk and said, "I'd like to meet with Director Kim Sue-hee." "The director, do you have an appointment?" "No, I came here unannounced. I have a matter to discuss with her one-on-one." Oh. It's usually difficult to arrange a sudden meeting without a prior appointment. If you tell her that the person who solo cleared the unanticipated gate at Sindoram Station earlier today is here, I'm sure she'll agree to meet. See Sindoram. One moment, securing an exclusive meeting with the academy director wasn't hard. After all, Suho had a unique advantage, revealing that he was the one who had single-handedly cleared the unanticipated gate at Sindoram Station that afternoon. Thus, Suho was promptly invited to the director's office. "Nice to meet you. I am Kim Sue-hee, director of Nexus Academy." Director Kim Sue-hee. She was an executive of the Nexus Guild, the third largest in the country, and Nexus Academy was its affiliated training institution, a subsidiary in corporate terms. Suho introduced himself in response to her greeting. "Ahn Su-ho." Kim Sue-hee smiled politely, a smile only a seasoned professional could maintain. "Yes, Mr. Suho. I understand from the front desk that you're the one who solo cleared the unanticipated gate at Sindoram Station today." The story about Suho had already spread quickly through the media. Though photos weren't posted publicly due to privacy concerns, it was still enough to identify him. At her question, Suho nodded. "Yes, that's correct." "Incredible. But I must ask, what brings someone of your caliber to our academy?" From her perspective, this was the pressing question. A person capable of solo clearing an unanticipated gate was already a proven hunter. Was he looking for a teaching position? But when Suho stated his purpose, Kim Sue-hee had to admit that her guess was completely wrong. "I'm here to propose a scholarship deal." "Scholarship? Yes, you're aware that the hunter license exams are being held at the association tomorrow." "Indeed, we have 400 candidates from our academy taking it this time." Nexus Academy's scale is certainly impressive. "I'll also be taking that exam tomorrow." "What, you Mr. Suho?" "Yes, I'm still an unregistered hunter, and just so you know, I awakened today." Hearing this, Kim Sue-hee blinked in disbelief. If this was true, it meant he had cleared an unanticipated gate right after awakening today. And that was beyond comprehension for her or for anyone with common sense. Overwhelmed, she stammered to confirm. "W8. Did I hear that correctly? You awakened today and are taking the hunter license exam as an unregistered hunter tomorrow, and you're the one who solo cleared the unanticipated gate at Sindoram." "Yes, you heard right." Oh my god, so it was true. But could this really be possible? Seeing her stunned expression, Suho continued. "After clearing the gate today, I went straight to the association to register. The staff there arranged for me to take both the written and practical exams tomorrow. That's why I'm here. I'm aiming for the top score in this year's exam." To the uninitiated, this might have sounded arrogant, but Suho didn't think so. In fact, he was already certain he'd be the top scorer, of course. He was the one who had once defeated one of the 5 great calamities. To Suho, the hunter license exam was child's play. After speaking, Suho took a sip of the iced tea served to him. Meanwhile, Kim Sue-hee could barely close her mouth in astonishment. But regaining her composure, she adjusted her glasses and asked calmly, "You seem very confident in taking the top spot. Did you perhaps major in a related field or prepare extensively for the exam?" "No, nothing like that." Hearing this, she furrowed her brow. "Then isn't that a bit overconfident? Solo clearing an unanticipated gate is impressive, but the hunter exam is another matter. The average pass rate is below 20% every year, so how? That's why I'm proposing this. If I don't take the top spot, you can just write it off as a loss. Only grant me the scholarship if I truly become the top scorer." This approach was common among prep academies. While hunter academies occasionally made similar offers, the top scorers were typically elite trainees groomed by large guilds, so actual scholarship contracts of this kind were rare. That's why Suho offered it first. Such cases were uncommon. She asked, "Then let me ask one more thing. If your goal is the scholarship, why not go to Hexagon, the top-ranked guild, or Prime, the second? Why choose us Nexus, ranked third? Because Nexus has the most to gain." What? If I'm not mistaken, Nexus Academy hasn't produced a top or second place finisher in the past few years. Despite being the largest academy in the country. Well, his words struck a nerve and she couldn't continue. It was true. Clearing her throat, she offered an explanation of sorts. That is true. But usually top spots go to elite trainees nurtured by major guilds, so we don't really. So you're not interested in my proposal? Fine, I'll go to Hexagon or Prime. No, wait, who said we're not interested? Goodness, you're in quite a rush. As Su-ho rose to leave, a flustered Kim Sue hurriedly stopped him. Of course, this was an opportunity like a golden apple falling into her lap. Already frustrated by Nexus's lack of top spots, she could not resist such an enticing proposal. Noticing her eagerness, Su-ho looked at her, then sat back down. So I can take that as a yes. Yes, we're very grateful for your proposal. Now, yes, let's discuss the scholarship amount. This was the core of the deal. After all, Su-ho's main reason for coming here was the money. Kim Sue asked, all right, could you tell me how much you have in mind? What's the official scholarship amount for the top scorer? Officially, we refund the entire tuition for the year and provide a separate prize of 30 million won. And if the candidate wishes, they can join our Nexus Guild immediately. 30 million won. Indeed, Nexus offered the highest scholarship amount among hunter academies, but Su-ho wasn't here for a mere 30 million. Understood. But you wouldn't offer just the official amount to me, would you? Of course not. Could you tell me what amount you had in mind? After taxes and deductions, around 300 million won. 300 million? Yes, isn't that a bit excessive? Once again, her jaw dropped, but Su-ho's stance was firm. If you think it's too much, feel free to decline. I can make the same offer elsewhere. But consider the additional benefits Nexus would gain from having me as the top scorer. In that case, 300 million won wouldn't seem excessive at all, would it? Without realizing it, she nodded. Indeed, Nexus Academy spent billions each year on advertising alone. If word got out that the solo clearer of the unanticipated gate at Sindaram Station was a Nexus graduate, the resulting financial benefits would dwarf 300 million won. There was no more need to hesitate. All right. We'll grant you 300 million. The contract was sealed. Chapter 9. Su-ho smiled as he spoke. You've made a wise choice. While you're preparing the contract, would it be all right if I explored the academy a bit? I'd like to take a personal look around, though I know you'll give me an official tour later. Of course, and could you leave your contact information? I'll reach out as soon as the contract is ready. It shouldn't take long. Yes, my number is. The contract was a safeguard against any potential issues, including duplicate agreements. Contracts are essential in the professional world, Su-ho mused. Especially when it involved a sum as substantial as 300 million won. After exchanging contact information, Su-ho stood up and began his exploration of Nexus Academy. It certainly lives up to its title as the largest in the country. Nexus Academy was vast, featuring a fitness training center, dormitories, mock training grounds, a study hall, a library for written exam preparation, a cafeteria, and numerous other facilities. The academy's layout, built on extensive grounds in Paju, earned it the nickname Nexus Village for its resemblance to a small town. Seeing this academy reminds me of my days as an exam candidate. Though Su-ho wasn't from a prestigious academy, these dormitory-based academies had always been out of reach, their monthly fees exorbitant. But he had studied hard independently and passed the exam on his first try, even scoring impressively on the aptitude test. During that time, he'd chosen the warrior class instead of healer. While walking through the facilities, Su-ho found himself in the private training grounds. The place wasn't too crowded since it wasn't class time, and several candidates were training individually according to their classes. Then a group of students caught Su-ho's attention. Looks like those guys are on the swordsmanship track. The students wielded a variety of swords, from daggers to longswords, practicing their swordsmanship techniques. But no matter how he looked at it, their stances seemed clumsy. It was only natural. They were new to the field, lucky enough to awaken as players but still inexperienced. Suddenly someone familiar came into view. Kang Di-han, he wasn't mistaken. The Library of Memories had refined Su-ho's recall to pinpoint accuracy. Besides, how could he forget a towering figure, roughly 190 cm tall and weighing about 120 kg with a shaved head? So Kang Di-han is a Nexus alumnus. Kang Di-han, the defender. In the future, he would be one of the top-ranked hunters in Korea, renowned as one of the country's best tankers. Su-ho had teamed up with Kang Di-han on several raids. He was sure of it. The bald head and massive build were Di-han's trademarks, but something seemed off. Kang Di-han was swinging an enormous axe, even though Su-ho remembered him as a shield wielder. Ah, he hasn't found his aptitude yet. A thought occurred to Su-ho. This is perfect. I should get a head start in winning him over. In the future, Kang Di-han would stay with Nexus. But if Su-ho established a connection now, there was a chance he could bring him over to the association instead. A defender like Kang Di-han would be invaluable in the association. No matter how strong an individual was, they couldn't handle everything alone. Problems emerged in various forms across different locations. Su-ho intended to secure skilled allies early, people who would work alongside him. Well, I did say I'd tour the academy, so this should be fine. With that, Su-ho headed down to the training ground. Fortunately, the training area didn't require a special access card, and though he was dressed casually rather than in academy attire, no one seemed overly interested. Approaching Kang Dehan, he greeted him. Hello. Huh. Oh, hello, Dehan replied, putting down his axe. Standing close, Su-ho confirmed that this was indeed Kang Dehan, the kind face, the polite voice. He noticed the name embroidered on his academy uniform. Kang Dehan? No need to ask his name then. Su-ho asked, are you a warrior? Yes, that's right, but who are you? I'm just someone passing through, but after watching you I thought there was something I should tell you. Su-ho was technically associated with the academy, so calling himself a relation wasn't a lie. Pointing to himself, Dehan asked me, yes, if you don't mind, how long have you been preparing for the exam? Blushing slightly, Dehan replied, this is my 3rd year. So you're taking tomorrow's exam as well? Yes, I registered again this time. Are you planning to use that battle axe for the practical test? Yes, that's the plan. Can I ask why you chose the battle axe? I'm aiming to be a melee damage dealer, and after discussing it with the academy, they recommended this. They said a weapon like this has great destructive power and not everyone can wield it. Su-ho felt a twinge of frustration. No matter how big someone was, recommending a battle axe to a player dependent on stats solely because of their size was absurd. And this is supposed to be the country's largest academy. It reminded Su-ho how outdated this era was. Back then, humanity had barely begun to adapt to life with gates, and much was still rudimentary compared to the future. Shaking his head, Su-ho said, that's not quite right. You should use a weapon that's easy for you to handle. Stats provide support for every player anyway. Oh, really? Yes, and you can quickly gain proficiency with any skill thanks to stats support. Most of your progress will come from personal knowledge and experience. Based on what I've observed, I don't think the battle axe suits you. But I've been using it for 3 years now, and that was the problem. Su-ho glanced at the weapons rack along the glass wall of the training area and said, do you see the kite shield in the corner over there? Yes, I see it. Strap it to your left arm and hold a one-handed blunt weapon in your right. That setup will get you a much higher practical score than the battle axe. Oh, so you're suggesting I go hybrid? A hybrid role meant combining 2 positions. In the warrior class, this could mean a role that was both secondary damage dealer and tank, often called a multi-tank. Yes, I'm recommending you go multi-tank. Is that necessary? I've been training with the battle axe for 3 years, and now you're suggesting I change positions. It seemed he was reluctant to let go. But Su-ho's memory held an image of Kang Dehan in the future wielding not an axe but a large shield. In other words, future Dehan eventually abandoned the battle axe after recognizing his limits. This time, Su-ho decided to help him realize it sooner, saving him time. Kang Dehan, what do you think is the core of a party? The mage. No, surprisingly, it's the tank. The tank draws aggro and protects the mage and healer to ensure the party functions smoothly. Then wouldn't it be better to just use a shield? Not an unreasonable question. There was a time when specializing in one skill was seen as the best approach, but as gates evolved, the purely defensive tank lost its role. Later on, even tanks had to counterattack as gate difficulty spiked. This was the reason why, despite being one of Korea's top tankers, Dehan never reached world-class status. He tried switching to hybrid too late, unable to adapt due to his extensive experience as a pure tank. So Su-ho recommended the multi-tank role from the start, anticipating a future where hybrid tanks would be essential. Su-ho explained, according to recent international gate studies, the role of pure tanks is expected to diminish over time. Tanks who can handle crowd control and wield a secondary weapon will be more versatile. Oh, and while the battle axe has high burst damage, the delay after each swing is too long. Without a follow-up, you'll be exposed. With your build, it would be hard for another tank to cover you. The insight struck a chord with Dehan. Out of all the advice, this resonated the most. Thank you, I think you're right. The practical test is about endurance against monsters, not weapon proficiency. Exactly. For warriors, it's all about how long you can withstand monsters. Skill proficiency isn't the main factor. Besides, one-handed mace skills are easy to learn, so with a bit of practice, you'll adapt quickly. Yes, thank you so much. Bowing deeply, Dehan expressed his gratitude. Su-ho looked around the training grounds to see if there were any other promising figures, but found none who stood out. After a thorough exploration, he received a message from director Kim Soo-hee, allowing him to finalize the contract. The next day, after sealing the scholarship contract with director Kim and visiting his old apartment, Su-ho spent the rest of the day resting and returned to the association the next morning. The association's entrance was packed with people. No surprise, it was hunter license exam day. Everyone, please line up in the order of your registration numbers. We'll proceed with the checks one by one. Taking the hunter exam for the first time in over a decade filled him with nostalgia. But he wasn't nervous. Though the hunter exam had a pass rate below 20%, that statistic only applied to ordinary candidates. After changing into the association-issued exam uniform, Su-ho completed the blood and urine tests before heading to the written exam room. They conduct these tests for possible doping, but it was practically pointless. Real dopers didn't rely on substances. They used skill buffs. Despite the ineffectiveness of these tests, the issue of skill doping had yet to emerge publicly, so they persisted. I'll have to bring this issue to light soon. Returning to the past, he realized there were numerous things to expedite. Su-ho was thinking over these plans as he settled into his assigned seat when a woman seated in front of him caught his attention. What's this? The woman looked utterly ordinary, but Su-ho could sense it. An abnormal mana wave emanated from her. He knew what it was: skill doping. Chapter 10. What do we have here? Su-ho had only recently started thinking about skill doping, and yet he'd already identified someone actively using it. The woman in front of him was definitely engaged in skill doping. All examinees had surrendered their personal items and changed into designated test attire upon entry, which meant there should be no enhanced mana waves among them. Besides, every candidate here is likely a level 1 unregistered hunter. There's no way a level 1 could exude this kind of mana unless they're like me. Hunters who lost their license were banned from retaking the exam, which reinforced Su-ho's certainty. Curious, he decided to discreetly scan the others around him. Focusing his senses to detect mana was a straightforward task. As Su-ho concentrated, he started picking up on mana flows from several people nearby, not just the woman. Then a notification appeared: your sensitivity to mana is exceptionally high compared to others. The system is evaluating your innate talent. Congratulations, you have acquired mana detection B. He had barely focused, and yet he gained a new skill. The skill's effects amplified his perception, allowing him to distinguish the nuances of mana waves more precisely. Now he could confirm the abnormal mana flow coming from the woman, as well as others nearby. Looks like she's definitely using a skill. With the mana detection skill, Su-ho could now distinguish between mana produced by skills and items. Sighing inwardly, Su-ho thought, things really were a mess back then. Though there wasn't much he could do right now. As an examinee himself, he couldn't exactly start accusing others in the middle of a test. Plus, with multiple cheaters around, calling them out one by one would be impractical. But he had an idea. Su-ho's gaze drifted up to the transparent observation room on the second floor, reserved for overseeing the test and preventing cheating. Inside, he spotted a familiar face watching the scene: young Chulmin. As I thought, he came. Su-ho grinned and waved up at him. After a brief moment, Chulmin waved back. Good, this meant he'd probably come down later to say hello. Just then, the written exam began. He made it. Young Chulmin's excitement grew as he saw Su-ho's name on the attendance list and confirmed his presence in person. Su-ho was an extraordinary find, the likes of which he hadn't encountered in years. Though it was a long shot, he genuinely hoped Su-ho would pass the test. And now Su-ho spotted him and even waved. This guy, he's quite entertaining. Young Chulmin decided he would personally congratulate him after the exam and reinforce his intention to recruit Su-ho into the association. Once the written exam was over and the examinees moved to the practical testing area, Chulmin hurried over to Su-ho. Did the test go well? Yes, I think it went all right, but what brings you here, team leader? Supporting the event. We're always short on personnel at the association, so on big days like this, everyone, regardless of their department, pitches in. Sounds like hard work. Haha, I'm used to it by now. But given you had less than a day to prepare, it's impressive how confident you are. I heard the questions were particularly difficult this time. Su-ho chuckled. They were manageable. By the way, may I ask you something? Sure, as long as it's not related to the test. Well, it's somewhat relevant. I noticed there's no skill screening here. Is there a reason for that? Skill screening? Yes, I noticed they did a urine test and a blood test but didn't screen for skills. Chulmin looked confused, clearly unfamiliar with the concept. This was still a time before skill screening had become common practice. However, he narrowed his eyes, lowering his voice. Is something bothering you? Well, think about it. They confiscate items and make everyone change clothes to prevent item-based cheating. But why aren't they checking for skill-based cheating? For a moment, Chulmin's eyes widened. He then leaned in closer. Did you see something? Su-ho grinned, confirming his suspicions, and watched as Chulmin's expression grew serious. Report them to me and I'll deal with it immediately, Chulmin urged. Haha, I'd like to, but I can't be certain. That's why I brought up skill screening. I understand what you're suggesting, but even so, we don't have the means to implement it. The concept of skill screening is still new to us. Addressing this would require organizing a team to devise a countermeasure, which isn't feasible right now. So please just report anyone you suspect. Su-ho realized he'd need to provide a bit more guidance. It doesn't have to be that complicated. There's no need to assemble a team for countermeasures. There's a skill called mana detection, right? If you use it, you can easily identify cheaters. Mana detection, yes. Specifically, you'd use it to detect the mana output from each person. As you know from entering gates, each player emits a unique amount of mana when using skills or items. Since everyone here is level 1, anyone outputting more than the average can be flagged for further inspection. Oh, realization dawned on Chalmin, his eyes widening in understanding. Suho added, of course my mana level might be a bit higher. After all, I recently soloed a gate. Oh, I'm fully aware, thank you. This is truly an unexpected bit of advice. And mana detection isn't even that rare, so we should be able to deploy staff quickly. So you're planning to implement it for this exam? Yes, we'll start with the practical test. By the way, Suho, with your gate achievement and this advice, you're already operating like a pro hunter. Haha, I'm far from that. No, really. In fact, there were talks about recruiting you as a special case, but since you signed up for the exam immediately, we thought we'd respect your decision. That said, don't worry, even if you don't pass this time, I'll push for a special recruitment pathway. Suho laughed at the idea of being a special recruit. No, it's all right, I'd rather pass fair and square. Entering the association as a regular recruit ensures no future controversies. Once again, admiration sparkled in Chalmin's eyes. Suho, you really are. Well, I'd better head to the practical test. All right, thank you. Oh, and Suho, yes, personally I really hope you pass. I'd love for us to work together. Suho acknowledged his words with a smile before making his way to the practical test area. While Chalmin quickly gathered monitors to prepare for mana detection, Suho examined the dive capsules scattered around the testing facility. Wow, look at these ancient models. Haven't seen them in ages. Dive capsules were virtual reality devices developed collaboratively by the nation's tech giants. Once inside, users could connect their consciousness to a virtual world, something out of a sci-fi novel. People once thought VR capsules would revolutionize the world. But the world changed before that much more rapidly. Nonetheless, VR remained popular, and dive capsules became widely used training tools for players. Civilians, too, enjoyed them for virtual reality games. Just then, the examiner made an unexpected announcement. Attention, candidates, due to an issue with the dive capsules, the test will be delayed by 2 hours. In the meantime, please feel free to use the lounge or training areas. The delay was a surprise, but Suho quickly understood. The capsule issue was a pretense. He could see Chalmin coordinating efforts to catch cheaters based on his hint. Looks like they'll do a mana check right before entering the capsules. As expected, Chalmin is thorough. Though the practical test would be delayed only by 2 hours, that was enough time for Chalmin to organize a team for cheating detection. With time to spare, Suho decided to observe the other candidates. The introduction of mana detection would mean a steep drop in pass rates due to the elimination of cheaters. There are 1,200 examinees in this session, right? Quite a turnout. With an average pass rate below 20%, Suho remembered hearing that this cohort's pass rate would dip below 10%. It even prompted the test to be slightly eased the following year. So those who passed this time are truly the cream of the crop. This made it all the more worthwhile to assess his fellow candidates. If he found any promising individuals, he could recruit them into the association, just as he planned with Kang Dehan. As he wandered through the training area, Suho's eyes landed on an unexpected face. Wait, that guy. No, that punk. Moving closer to confirm, he recognized him instantly even by his weapon. Park Yang, so he's part of this cohort. The man, resting against a wall with a lazy expression, clutching his practice sword in his arms, was indeed Park Yang. Despite his unassuming appearance, Suho knew him to be a notorious figure in the future, a criminal of the highest order, infamous for becoming a serial killer who targeted hunters. Chapter 11, it was certain. Of course it was because he had personally taken Park Yang's life, so this lunatic is in this cohort. Park Yang was more than worthy of the title lunatic. No, he was a genuine madman. A madman obsessed with both the sword and raw power. He wielded a sword with almost insane proficiency and was so deeply immersed in swordsmanship that his nickname was Mad Sword. Suho narrowed his eyes. So if we both make it through, does that mean we'd be in the same intake? That was right. Although the industry didn't really adhere to hierarchies, it could be said that, if anything, they'd be peers. And Park Yang would likely pass. Suho didn't recall the exact details of his debut, but he knew that Park was one of the swordsmanship prodigies he respected in his past life. Suho rubbed his chin, briefly lost in thought. Park Yang was the kind of person who saw everything through a lens of power, relying solely on strength to assess others. Moreover, he was so thirsty for strength that he sought out masters at every chance to challenge them to fights, an obsession that ultimately led him down the path of a serial killer targeting hunters. That was why Suho had to take preventive measures now while he still could. If he turned a blind eye, who knew how many innocent people would become his victims? Annoying but necessary. After considering his options, Su-ho came up with a suitable approach and walked over to Park Yang. He checked the name tag on his chest to confirm it was indeed him before speaking. Hello. Park Yang glanced at him briefly, then looked away. Right, that was typical of him. He never paid attention to those he deemed weak. But in contrast, he obsessed over strong opponents, almost to the point of stalking them. Su-ho knew exactly how to deal with someone like him. Su-ho asked again, my name is Ahn Su-ho. Judging by the sword you're holding, you're an aspiring swordsman. How about a sparring match? Su-ho held up a practice wooden sword he had brought. At that, Park Yang frowned and replied, Buzz off, sorry, I said buzz off. The cynical response was just as expected, but did he think that would make Su-ho give up? Su-ho smirked and asked, a bit harsh, don't you think? Or are you afraid? At that moment, Park Yang's gaze, which had been avoiding him, suddenly snapped directly onto Su-ho. Ah, classic Park Yang, so sensitive when it came to anything related to strength. Park narrowed his eyes and asked, what did you just say? I asked if you're avoiding it out of fear. Do you think you're somebody? Why so cocky? Oh, and if I am, want to find out? Huh. With that, Park Yang abruptly stood up. I was bored stiff surrounded by weaklings, so this is perfect. Let's go, bring it. You should have agreed sooner, follow me. There's a sparring area over there, let's use that. Crazy bastard. Park Yang let out a dry laugh, clearly amused by Su-ho's brazen attitude. In his life, he'd never met someone like this. Fortunately, Park Yang followed Su-ho's suggestion and headed to the sparring area with him. After all, even though they were waiting, they were technically still in the middle of the exam. Park Yang didn't want to be disqualified over something trivial. A sparring match, sure, well, all right, the examiner replied, a little surprised but quickly nodding in agreement. This wasn't the first time he'd encountered people like this. Soon, the examiner Su-ho and Park Yang made their way to the temporary sparring area set up at the edge of the training grounds. Naturally, no one else was using the sparring area. After all, no one wanted to risk injury on such an important exam day. Perhaps that was why other examinees, bored with waiting, started gathering to watch. The examiner spoke up. You're only allowed to use the practice weapons provided by the association, and remember, since this is a sparring match, I'll stop it if things get too heated. Also, you need to be careful. If you get injured here, you may not be able to take the main exam. After agreeing that neither party would hold the other accountable for any injuries, they finally stepped back, creating some distance. The onlookers started murmuring. Look at these guys, what's with the fuss on a day like this? They must be attention seekers. Who do you think will win? I'm betting on that guy with the sleepy eyes. Why, ever notice in comics the ones with droopy or slit eyes are usually the skilled ones? That's true, the sleepy-eyed guy they were talking about was Park Yang. Su-ho chuckled, not wrong, but this time will be different. Park Yang might be talented, but Su-ho was even more formidable. The examiner signaled the start. Immediately, Park Yang took his stance, but, what's with that guy? Why's he just standing there without even drawing his sword? Unlike Park Yang, who had immediately taken up a ready stance, Su-ho stood with his sword still sheathed at his waist, simply watching. Some of the onlookers found it impressive, while others just shook their heads, thinking he was showing off. Look at that poser. Must have watched some sword-wielding character in an anime and gotten drunk on the fantasy. 100%. What if he's actually skilled? If he is, I'll give up the exam and go eat grilled pork immediately. You better follow through. Park Yang shared the onlookers' disdain, scowling at Su-ho. What are you doing? What do you mean we're sparring? Go on, make your move. This damn bastard. Seeing Su-ho just standing there with his sword at his waist, not even taking a proper stance, Park Yang gritted his teeth. He resolved to break at least one of Su-ho's bones, or maybe 2 or 3 if he had to pay compensation. With that determination, Park Yang lunged towards Su-ho. But Su-ho remained still, and when Park Yang's sword was mere inches from his face, whoosh, the sound of air splitting. Park Yang's eyes widened. He had missed entirely, as if nothing was there to strike. Su-ho had simply turned his body slightly to evade Park Yang's attack. Beginner's luck maybe. Sure, even lottery winners existed, so dodging a first strike was possible. Thinking that, Park Yang twisted his waist, swinging his sword again in the direction Su-ho had dodged. Or rather, he tried to swing it. Thud, just as he was about to swing, something pressed down on the back of his sword. Incredibly, it was Su-ho's foot. Before Park Yang could gather his strength, Su-ho had stepped on his sword, halting his swing. Shocked, Park Yang tried to shove Su-ho back using both hands, but Su-ho didn't budge like a stone. He chuckled, seeing Park Yang's growing frustration and struggle. Su-ho couldn't help but laugh to himself. Right, it must be frustrating, but that couldn't be helped. Su-ho was now level 10. Among all the unregistered hunters in the country. No, among all unregistered hunters in existence, he likely had the highest level in stats. After all, under the global hunter laws, unregistered hunters were never allowed into gates. Then with his foot still pinning Park Yang's movement, Su-ho pushed hard, sending Park Yang staggering backward. Unable to overcome the vast difference in stats, Park Yang nearly stumbled, barely keeping his balance. The crowd fell silent. Everyone had expected a chaotic brawl or one-sided beatdown but hadn't anticipated the match to play out like this. The examiner was equally stunned. Who? Who is this guy? Exhausted from preparing for the exam, the examiner's fatigue disappeared upon witnessing Su-ho's skill. In all his years of watching examinees, including elite recruits backed by major guilds, he'd never seen anyone like Su-ho. Su-ho laughed. What's wrong? Not coming at me again, giving up. You, Park Yong's anger flared as he ground his teeth but quickly swallowed his rage, lifting one corner of his mouth in acknowledgement. Initially enraged by Su-ho's toying, Park Yong, a true believer in strength, now recognized Su-ho's skill. When it came to swordsmanship, Park Yong was dead serious and he could tell. That maneuver wasn't beginner's luck or a special skill, it was the real deal. With newfound respect, Park Yong adjusted his stance. You're interesting, now I understand why you were so confident. Alright, from now on I'll take this seriously. You seemed pretty serious a moment ago. Yes, I was serious then too, Park Yong's lips twisted into a chilling smile. For a brief moment, Su-ho felt he glimpsed the true madness that defined Park Yong. It was exactly what he had wanted. Perfect, this is exactly what I was aiming for. Su-ho wanted Park Yong fixated on him. This way he wouldn't target anyone else until he had overcome Su-ho. Park Yong shifted into a different stance, and Su-ho's mouth opened in surprise. It was the basic stance of Park's original swordsmanship style, Dragon Sword Technique. Dragon Sword Technique, huh? It's been a while since I've seen that, although people who know it often call it Mad Dragon Sword instead. Why was it called Mad Dragon Sword? The reason was simple. With the name Mad Sword and Park's family name Yang, meaning dragon, the style had been named accordingly. However, since he was still unlicensed, he wouldn't have fully mastered the original technique yet. At best, he might have grasped the basics. In an instant, Park Yang closed the distance to Su-ho. Not bad at all. He clearly had some sort of footwork skill, but I have footwork too. Su-ho followed Park Yang's movements with his eyes. And as if calculating every move, he dodged each strike, turning his body just before Park's sword could touch him. Once, twice, even 3 times. After 3 consecutive misses, Park Yang didn't get angry, nor did he laugh maniacally. Instead, he stared intensely at Su-ho with an unnervingly focused gaze. As Park prepared a 4th strike, Su-ho almost instinctively leaned his forehead forward. Thunk, a dull sound echoed. Su-ho's forehead had met the bridge of Park Yang's nose, with both hands still at his waist. A headbutt. Startled by the unexpected hit to his nose, Park Yang stumbled back a few steps, covering his mouth as he looked at Su-ho with utter bewilderment. Chapter 12, and then it happened. Wahahiha. Right after Su-ho's unexpected headbutt, the spectators around them burst into laughter. What had been a tense and hostile atmosphere was shattered by the simplicity of that playful headbutt. On top of that, seeing the fierce and menacing Park Yang look so flustered added to the humor. Is he actually strong, or is that guy just weak? Haha, a headbutt right in the nose. That's hilarious. Did you see the way he kept his hands at his waist the whole time? That was some serious class. Where do you think he trained? His skills are no joke. Idiot, if he's that skilled, he's probably some rising star from a major guild. Really, in an instant, the heavy atmosphere transformed and Su-ho became the center of attention. The attack may have seemed silly, but anyone with real combat experience knew it was an incredible counter. Park Yang, holding his nose, let out a scoff, clearly baffled. Then, in an instant, his face twisted into the most deadly expression yet, radiating a murderous intent that seemed as if he could actually kill someone. Wow, that's some serious killing intent. But if this keeps going, it's going to get dangerous. Realizing the intensity of the situation, Su-ho decided to end it here. If he pushed Park Yang any further, things might take a turn for the worse. Such an outcome was best avoided. Su-ho spoke up, this time I'll go first. With that, he closed the distance in an instant, using a footwork technique far faster than anything Park Yang had demonstrated. Park Yang, startled, tried to draw his sword, but Su-ho simply reached out and pressed down on the end of the hilt, preventing him from drawing it. Then, using his other hand, Su-ho thrust his palm upward into Park Yang's chin. Thwack, he struck a little harder than necessary, just enough to knock him out. And as expected, thud, unable to withstand the force, Park Yang lost consciousness and collapsed. At that moment, a system notification appeared. You have gained significant proficiency with palm strikes. The system is evaluating your talent. Congratulations, you have acquired the skill Palm Strike B. Su-ho received a new skill Palm Strike. After dismissing the notification, he dusted his hands off and approached the examiner. I just knocked him out, so please handle the rest until he wakes up. Huh, oh yes, thanks. With a polite nod, Su-ho left the area. This first encounter with Park Yang was sufficient for now. A couple of hours later, the issues with the capsules were resolved and the practical exam resumed. Su-ho looked at the raised platform where the capsules were set up. Alongside the usual exam proctors, several new individuals were present. They looked like capsule technicians at a glance, but Su-ho recognized who they really were. They must be the skill evaluators. These evaluators had been urgently summoned at Su-ho's request. Among them was young Chulmin, quite the turnout for something prepared on such short notice. Chulmin must have had a tough time arranging this. Satisfied, Su-ho nodded as dozens of examinee numbers flashed on the screens suspended from the ceiling. To ensure fairness, numbers will be drawn at random. Those called must report within 5 minutes or they'll be automatically disqualified. Su-ho watched the examinees heading up to the platform one by one. Soon, he noticed a few candidates being escorted out the back door with the skill evaluators. They were suspected of cheating. As expected, Chulmin does his job well. The evaluators were wearing fluorescent vests to keep their identities hidden, minimizing the chance of a disturbance from any cheating candidates. Thanks to these precautions, the suspected cheaters were taken away quietly, ensuring that other potential cheaters remained unaware and unalarmed. Before long, Su-ho's number appeared on the display. Finally, my turn. With light steps, Su-ho ascended the platform. By chance or perhaps by design, he was assigned to a capsule overseen by young Chulmin himself. Su-ho acknowledged him with a silent nod. He then went through a mana inspection, receiving an exceptionally high result, though he passed without issue since Chulmin already knew his background. As Su-ho settled into the capsule, the proctor offered a warning. If you feel anything unusual during the dive, immediately use the emergency help call. Yes, Su-ho knew the reason for the warning. These early model dive capsules often had glitches and stability issues. With the capsule module attached, Su-ho prepared to dive into the exam program, initiating Hunter Practical Exam Program, connecting users' consciousness. Dive progress 5%. When the dive reached 100%, Su-ho's vision darkened and then his surroundings changed entirely. A stark grayscale landscape greeted him. Another mechanical voice chimed in. Player Ahn Su-ho, thank you for participating in the Hunter License Practical Exam. I am the Program Master here to assist you through the practical exam. Based on the registered information, we will now begin the practical exam for the Healer class. There were 4 types of practical exams based on class. Su-ho had taken the exam for the Warrior class before, which involved various combat scenarios, testing how long candidates could endure and how many enemies they could defeat. In that sense, the Healer class, suddenly the environment around him twisted and the sounds of screams filled the air. Ag, help me, over here we need a heal. The screams were only the beginning. The smell of burning and blood filled his nostrils and explosions echoed sporadically. A battlefield in chaos. Su-ho looked around and muttered, now I get why this part of the exam is called a trial by fire. For the Healer exam, the focus was on showing how calm and committed a candidate could remain in the face of chaos. In that sense, a blood-soaked battlefield was the perfect test setting, but perhaps they'd gone too far. For a rookie unfamiliar with such a brutal scene, the sight of a screaming patient could easily cause nausea or trauma. This is why healers are so highly valued. Su-ho knelt beside a nearby patient and began to channel healing light. It hurts so much. Hang in there, rescue teams will be here soon. Su-ho began in a textbook manner. The Healer exam didn't focus on healing power or output. It was more about testing the qualifications for a Hunter license, not the healer's level. In other words, the key to scoring high as a healer was the willingness to protect a patient at any cost. To put it simply, dying in defense of a patient was considered an ideal result. Globally, a healer's greatest virtue was sacrifice. That's why Isabella was always going on about sacrifice. But Su-ho had no intention of dying. Like hell am I getting killed by orcs. He was the sword god after all, him dying to lowly orcs, ridiculous. This test's program even simulated pain for added realism. And with my current status, I'd last much longer than most players, enduring even more blows before dying. He might instinctively dodge attacks, extending his suffering further. Su-ho's expression tightened just thinking about it. It was a horrifying thought. After finishing first aid, he looked around and found an unattended sword nearby. The point of this test is to protect the patient. In that case, why die needlessly? He'd just eliminate the threats to the patient. Besides, this was a virtual environment programmed specifically for the exam. Su-ho knew the monsters in this practical program were limited in number. Better to fight until they stop coming than get beaten to death. Just then, a group of 4 orcs approached Su-ho, their eyes fixed on him with lethal intent. After a brief consideration, Su-ho tucked the sword into his belt. There wasn't a proper sheath, but he positioned it at his side as if there were one, then bent his body forward. He couldn't abandon the patient, nor could he charge ahead and leave them vulnerable. Even if his goal was to protect them, leaving too much distance would likely result in automatic disqualification. With that in mind, Su-ho readied himself. He took a deep breath, his senses sharpening as the background noise faded. Then the 4 orcs charged at him in unison. All right, come closer, just a little more, a little closer. When the orc stepped into Su-ho's ideal range, he unsheathed the sword with explosive speed, swinging it wide. Slish, a sharp slicing sound filled the air, then splurt, a deep cut appeared across the orc's bodies, spraying blood everywhere. And right at that moment, you have gained significant proficiency with Iaido. The system is evaluating your talent. Congratulations, you have acquired the skill Iaido B. Su-ho was reunited with one of his favorite techniques. As I thought, even in this virtual reality, if it was Earth, no one could escape the system's watch. That's why learning physical skills was possible. To the system, Su-ho's actions were real enough to be counted. After this discovery, many players trained in virtual reality. There, they could reset physical damage and fatigue as often as they liked. However, it was soon discovered that training in virtual reality was less efficient. In contrast to real-world training, where players could fully push their limits, the virtual environment allowed healing and resets which slowed experience gain. But that has nothing to do with me. This didn't apply to Su-ho. The skills he aimed to perfect weren't new or experimental. They were the genuine, hard-won techniques he had already mastered through sacrifice. I'll hold out as long as I can. Suppressing a smirk, Su-ho raised his sword once more. Chapter 13. Examinees began emerging from the capsules, having completed their practical exams. The average exam duration was about 10 minutes per person. While this seemed short, the program's adjusted virtual time made it feel like 30 minutes inside the simulation. Of course, very few lasted the full half hour. The difficulty was calibrated to end most exams within 20 minutes. A candidate who had entered the capsule next to Su-ho now stepped out. 11 minutes. Shorter than the last cohort, observed Kim, the examiner, shaking his head as he noted the time. After hours of supervising, Kim had yet to see any outstanding talents. Before calling the next candidate, he turned to ask Park, the examiner beside him, "How long has your candidate been in there?" 30 minutes. What? Just crossed the 30-minute mark. 30 minutes, could that be possible? Stunned, Kim approached Park's capsule and checked the monitor. Indeed, the candidate had been in the dive for over 30 minutes, still fighting like mad against a horde of orcs. Is he a warrior? He's fighting exceptionally well. No, he's a healer. What? He's a healer, look here. Park showed the candidate's information. It was true. The candidate's name Ahn Su-ho was listed as a healer on the screen. But how is he fighting like that? Isn't he supposed to be a healer? Isn't this grounds for disqualification? Not at all. He meets all the requirements, so there's no reason to fail him. At that moment, Young Chulmin, who was acting as Park's partner examiner, spoke up. As a healer, his main objective is to protect his patient. Look at the screen, he hasn't left his patient's side, nor has he abandoned them to fight. He's even healing them whenever he gets the chance. Indeed, Su-ho was cutting down orcs and tending to his patient when he could. With all conditions met, there's no reason for disqualification. Besides, the exam program isn't intervening, so why should we? Young Chulmin continued, maintaining a serious tone. Ah, Kim muttered, impressed. With a smile, Young added, "It seems we already have the top candidate for this exam. Let's just sit back and see what record he sets." Both Kim and Park nodded. After all, they'd never seen anything like this in the history of the practical exam. Kaya, thud, another orc fell. Su-ho had lost count of how many he'd defeated. He didn't mind that he wasn't earning experience points or items from these battles. He was gaining something far more valuable. Your proficiency with Iaido has increased significantly. The system is reevaluating your talent. Congratulations, your Iaido skill has been upgraded to rank A. Iaido A. Your draw-in/speed and range have increased. His Iaido skill had leveled up. And not just that, his decapitation skill reached rank A, and he acquired other skills such as hilt strike, blade strike, and ankle slash, all of which were also enhanced to a rank. This is an incredible opportunity, Su-ho was thrilled. Without having to enter a gate, he could restore his skills in this way. Of course, he didn't neglect his patient. While skill recovery was essential, protecting the patient remained his top priority. After cutting down yet another wave of orcs, another notification appeared. Your understanding of swordsmanship is unparalleled. The system is in awe of your mastery and fully acknowledges your unique swordsmanship. Would you like to register a new swordsmanship skill that combines basic techniques and footwork? Upon registration, the skill will receive a new grade and you may assign it a name. Finally, Su-ho's eyes widened at the notification. At last, the system recognized his skills completely. Without hesitation, Su-ho responded, "Please name your newly created swordsmanship." The answer had long been decided. Su-ho Sword. Confirm the name as Su-ho Sword. Yes, congratulations. The system acknowledges your supreme skill level and has created a new, unique swordsmanship skill just for you. You have created the skill Su-ho Sword S. Your basic swordsmanship and footwork skills have both been enhanced by 50%. Su-ho beamed as he read the notification. Finally, he had the Su-ho Sword. In his past life, it had taken him over 10 years to create this technique. Now, he had obtained it in just a few days. Though he had already been using the Su-ho sword as it was ingrained in his body, there were other reasons he wanted to claim it officially as soon as possible. You have achieved a remarkable feat. The system grants you a bonus of 10 stat points. Another notification appeared. By achieving the Su-ho sword, Su-ho received an additional 10 bonus stat points. This perk was awarded only to those who developed an S-grade skill through their own talent and hard work, rather than from gate rewards or skill books. But the perks didn't end there. Another notification followed. Your swordsmanship shines with a brilliance admired by all swordsmen. The system wishes for you to continue along the path of the sword and grants an additional reward. Congratulations, you have received Sword Mastery S. Sword Mastery, this was another S-grade skill, a unique bonus bestowed by the system. Reading the description, Su-ho's smile grew. Swordsmanship and physical skills could be acquired through repetition, but certain warrior and related classes had exclusive skills. With Sword Mastery, he could learn even those skills. For a swordsman, swordsmanship was paramount, but sword hunters couldn't ignore the importance of skills. And not just skills, some swords were also exclusive to specific classes, only usable by the swordsman class. After checking the skill, Su-ho closed the notification. Looking around, he noticed many orcs still surrounded him, but he felt no concern. Although it was just an exam program, he remembered that the number of orcs here was finite. Come on, having achieved his goal, Su-ho continued to slay the orcs with renewed enthusiasm. How much time had passed? As the exam dragged on, even the other examiners gathered around Su-ho's capsule. Exam time. 3 hours and 2 minutes. So he's been in the practical exam for over 3 hours. Unbelievable. Su-ho had become a legend among the examiners. At that moment, Jung Chulmin, who had been quietly monitoring the capsule, spoke up. It's over, really? Let's see, the examiners crowded around, but the monitor displayed a rather unusual message. All the orcs prepared for the practical exam have been defeated. Please restart the program. Rather than ending the exam, the program master had requested a restart. The examiners, having never seen such a notification, were dumbfounded. Wow, he really killed all the orcs. I didn't know clearing the orcs would trigger a message like this. They looked towards Su-ho's examiner. What are you going to do? You're not really going to restart the exam, are you? Of course not. This time, Jung Chulmin answered instead of Park. Trying to suppress his excitement, he spoke seriously. This situation is unprecedented in practical exam history, but if we force him to retake the exam just because he didn't die to the orcs, that would cause a lot of problems. The examiner's expressions grew serious before they all nodded. Right, it's not like he cheated and his patient is still alive. With so many witnesses, of course he passes. In fact, I'd say he should be designated the top candidate for this practical exam. If he passes even the written exam with the minimum score, I believe he should graduate as the top overall candidate. Think of the publicity this would bring. So what do you all think? Whether it was due to Jung Chulmin's assertive argument or Su-ho's impressive performance, not a single examiner disagreed. This marked the birth of an unprecedented top candidate in Hunter exam history. Finally, the exam was over. Hearing from Jung Chulmin that he'd likely see excellent results, Su-ho left the association. But he hadn't walked far when someone called out to him. Excuse me? Yes. Turning, he saw a man he didn't recognize. Who was this? He couldn't recall seeing him before. The man pulled a business card from his pocket and introduced himself. Nice to meet you, I'm Park Pyung-sik, a scout for Prime Guild. Ah, so he was a guild scout. And Prime Guild was currently the second largest guild in the industry. Su-ho could guess why they approached him, but in situations like this, feigning ignorance was polite. Accepting the card, Su-ho asked, and Park Pyung-sik politely responded. I'll be direct, Prime Guild would like to recruit you, player Ahn Su-ho. If you're not already affiliated or negotiating with another guild, would you have time for a chat, just as he thought. Su-ho smiled internally at the scout's offer. Chapter 14. Guild scouts were more formidable than one might think. Many went as far as entering restricted examination halls undercover as examinees to scout potential recruits. Park Pyung-sik was one such scout. This way he could get ahead and secure genuine talents before anyone else. While this approach wasn't mainstream yet, it would soon become the standard in the future. In that sense, Park was an early adopter. Su-ho nodded, then asked, There's no way my exam results have been leaked yet. Did you enter as a candidate yourself, Mr. Scout? Yes, I did. I've been observing you since your spar with Park Yang. That would make things much quicker. This was a great opportunity for Su-ho. Good, then we can skip any lengthy explanations. What kind of terms do you have in mind? Park's face brightened at the mention of terms. Candidates who asked directly were often easier to recruit. You've just become a hunter, so we can't offer anything extreme. But we promise the best conditions among new recruits. Best conditions for a rookie, but it's still rookie level, right? True, but since you don't have a record as a hunter yet, even Hexagon would offer a similar contract. Do you really think so? Excuse me, you heard about the gate at Sindorim Station yesterday, didn't you? Yes, I'm aware. But why bring that up now? Being from Prime, it seems your information is a bit slow, maybe because it just happened. Anyway, I was the solo conqueror of that gate. What? If you don't believe me, check the news later. We can revisit the terms once that's confirmed, right? W8, hold on a moment. Oh, come on, you'll have to discuss it internally anyway, right? Take your time and reach out. By the way, here's my number. With that, Su-ho shared his number with Park, then took his leave. Holding Su-ho's number, Park stared blankly for a moment before hurriedly dialing his guild. This was an emergency. The next day. No surprises awaited. In this digital era, results were released within a day, and Su-ho received word of his passing directly from Young Chalmin. Congratulations on passing, Su-ho. Thank you, team leader. Thanks to you, we managed to catch a lot of cheaters using skill doping. Just as you said, all of them were juicing up with skills. This is going to be reported in the media, and the exam regulations will be tightened moving forward. That was good news. If unworthy hunters filled the ranks, not only would it tarnish the profession's reputation, but it would also lead to a decline in gate success rates and more innocent casualties. I'm glad, fair exams are always better. Exactly. Also, it's about to be announced, but you're the top scorer in this exam. Congratulations once again. Su-ho smiled, of course. After all the fuss, they couldn't not award him the top spot. Still, he replied modestly, "Thank you. I guess I've done well thanks to you. Haha, it's not like I did anything. The full list will be on the association's website this afternoon. Your name will be at the top as the #1 candidate." Got it. Thank you. Just as Su-ho was about to hang up, Jung hesitated before continuing. It feels awkward to ask this right after you've passed, but do you still want to join the association? Su-ho chuckled at that. It seemed Jung was eager to keep him on board, especially with Su-ho now at the top of his class. He gave him the answer he wanted to hear. Of course, I've already received offers from large guilds, but I'm set on joining the association. Jung's face broke into a wide smile. Thank you, I'll notify you as soon as the hiring announcements go up. Get some rest, you've earned it. Thank you, I will. After the call, Su-ho immediately dialed the next person. With his top ranking secured, it was time for business. The next person was Director Kim Sue. Hello, Su-ho, today is results day, right? Kim answered immediately as though she had been waiting for his call. Su-ho nodded and replied, Yes, Director, I'm calling because of that. I received confirmation from an insider that I passed as the top candidate. The official results will be posted on the association's website in a few hours. You can check there and make the transfer as per our contract. Congratulations on passing. I had faith you'd make it, but Su-ho, if you're interested, what would you say to joining Nexus Guild? We'd offer the best conditions compared to any other guild. As expected, Kim was interested just as Su-ho had anticipated. In fact, any guild would react this way to the top candidate. Su-ho could already feel guild's eagerness, especially since he had conquered a gate even before officially becoming a hunter. This was why he had demanded the 3 billion won fee. It allowed him to build goodwill with Nexus while holding off on making any firm commitments. Might as well test the waters while I'm at it. Su-ho asked. Prime made a similar offer. How would Nexus compare? There was a brief silence before Kim spoke again. You've already met with Prime. A scout from Prime was at the exam disguised as a candidate, so I guess I caught his attention. A faint sound of surprise came from the other end of the line. She hadn't realized such a method existed, but her professionalism showed through as she quickly offered her terms. Whatever Prime offers will do better. How do you know what Prime offered? I may not know exactly, but I can promise more than any regular scout can offer. I have the authority after all. Plus, since you're a Nexus Academy scholarship student, adjusting the terms is easier. Why not meet now and discuss it in person? Kim's persistence was admirable, but Su-ho declined. It wasn't time to join a guild just yet. No, I have a personal schedule today, but feel free to send the terms via text and I'll consider them. As a Nexus scholarship recipient, it would look better for me to join Nexus, right? Of course. I'll draft up an offer and get back to you shortly. Just promise you won't sign with anyone else before seeing it. Haha, sure, I'll be waiting. With that, the call with Kim ended. Next, Su-ho headed to a nearby community center. Now that he'd officially passed, his hunter certification would have been processed in the system, meaning he could receive his license card. Once his license was issued, he hailed a taxi to Dongdaemun Market. Before diving into hunter activities, he needed to do a bit of shopping. The taxi carrying Su-ho set off toward Dongdaemun, a while later at Hexagon Guild's headquarters. Scouts and other team members involved in the Hunter exam project gathered in a conference room to await the announcement of the top-ranked candidate. Our recruit Gi Hyun is sure to take the top spot this time. Absolutely. We went through a lot to bring him in as an Olympic hopeful. This time, Hexagon will come out on top. Hexagon and Prime Guild were neck and neck, competing for the industry's top spot. They had rivalries across various areas, including the Hunter exams. Hexagon had been losing to Prime for several cycles, so they had recruited Kim Gi-hyun, an Olympic hopeful, as their trump card this time. Good afternoon, everyone. At that moment, the deputy guild leader, Han Ti-hyun, entered the room. Given the importance of this project, he was there to review the results before reporting to the guild leader. Han took the seat at the head of the table and asked, "So we'll finally beat Prime this time, right?" "No question, deputy leader. Gi-hyun will show them what we're made of." Looking forward to it, one of the staff members who had been refreshing the association's website suddenly spoke up. "It's up." All eyes turned to the screen at the front of the room, where the association's website displayed the list of successful candidates. They were prepared to celebrate their victory. Everyone expected Kim Gi-hyun's name to top the list, but as soon as the results appeared, frowns spread across their faces. "Huh, what is this?" When the association released results, the top three names, first, second, and third place, appeared at the top of the list. In other words, the name at the far left should have been Kim Gi-hyun's. Yet his name was nowhere to be seen. Instead, top candidates 1, Ahn Su-ho 2, Park Young 3, Kang Di-han, and so on. Familiar but unexpected names filled the list. Everyone at Hexagon was momentarily speechless. Dongdaemun Market. This bustling, eclectic market was one of Korea's iconic open markets, filled with both mainstream and niche items. Su-ho strolled through the aisles, picking up the essentials he needed. He had plenty of funds. Shortly after his call with Kim Soo-hee, his scholarship funds were deposited into his account. Finally, after purchasing most of what he needed, Su-ho made his way to his last destination. Do Young Hardware. The worn sign read exactly that. Tucked away in a quiet corner, this old hardware shop was Su-ho's final stop. As he entered, the elderly shopkeeper, clad in nothing but a tank top, didn't look up from his TV. "Welcome," he said in a flat tone. It was a routine greeting. Dongdaemun's merchants generally didn't engage in active salesmanship, especially those in quiet back alleys like Doyoung Hardware where only regulars knew to come. Su-ho responded just as plainly, "I'm looking for some light spears. I recently became a hunter." Finally taking a look at him, the shopkeeper gestured to a pile of spears in the corner. There, a heap of cheap-looking spears awaited him. Chapter 15, the shopkeeper gestured toward a corner. "The ones over there are the cheaper spears." "Thank you." Cheaper was an understatement. They were indeed low quality. Most of the spears in that corner didn't even display item information, as items made by non-smith players often lacked such data. Items made by common craftsmen were usually classified as poor quality. Of course, there were weapons made with craftsmanship and good materials, but that didn't necessarily mean they would qualify as official items in the system. To be considered an item, the creator's rank and skills mattered. Su-ho narrowed his eyes and activated a skill. Mana detection has been activated. With his skill in effect, he could sense all sources of mana within the vicinity. The real items, those emitting even a faint mana, were mostly displayed on walls or cases. This was expected, as any classified item had to contain a minimal amount of mana, but Su-ho wasn't looking for those. Then, he noticed one spear that emitted a subtle mana pulse amidst the rest. Unlike the others, this one gave off a stronger mana wave. He picked it up and inspected it. Old spear. Grade F description: an old, blackened spear. The description was simple and it was classified as a low-grade weapon. But Su-ho knew it was exactly what he was looking for. After purchasing it, he left the shop. The price was 100,000 won, lowered even further by the shopkeeper's quick inspection. Watching the shopkeeper discount it, Su-ho smirked to himself. The owner would regret that decision if he knew the spear's true value. Su-ho found a quiet spot nearby and sat down. Pulling out the spear, he began channeling his mana into it. Soon, something remarkable happened. Mana is being supplied to, consciousness is beginning to awaken. 2 notifications appeared, and the spear started vibrating intensely, hungrily absorbing Su-ho's mana at an alarming rate. Su-ho quickly released the spear. After only a few seconds, he felt dizzy from the intense mana drain. "So I still don't have enough stats." To fully awaken this spear, he would need at least 100 points in his mana stat, but Su-ho was satisfied he'd found the right item. As for his lacking stats, that could be dealt with at his next destination. He had come here first simply to ensure no one else bought the spear. With his shopping done, he hailed another taxi to his next stop. In the cab, Su-ho searched online and found a certain blog. From it, he dialed a listed number. "Hello, this is Jojin HWI," came the voice from the other end. Jojin HWI was a journalist working for PBS, Korea's top player-focused broadcasting station. Su-ho had worked closely with him in the past, before he went into hiding, since knowing a capable journalist or two made many things easier. Su-ho introduced himself. "Mr. Jojin HWI from PBS, this is Ahn Su-ho." Ahn Su-ho? There was a pause. The name seemed significant enough for Joe to rack his memory. After all, someone who introduced themselves so directly usually had a reason to. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't recall anyone named Ahn Su-ho. Sorry, but who are you? As expected, he didn't know Su-ho yet. This will clear things up. I'm the solo conqueror of the unpredicted gate incident at Sindaram Station, Su-ho said calmly. Joe's eyes widened as he sat up straight. The solo conqueror, what else? I'll also be the top scorer in yesterday's Hunter exam. The results will be out soon. The top scorer, Joe's mind froze for a moment. What was he talking about? The solo conqueror of the Sindaram Gate and a top scorer. Wasn't that an unlicensed hunter? Then Joe's mind flashed with the realization, could he have been unregistered? Given the strict regulations, once a hunter license was revoked, it could never be reissued. Joe remained quiet, his pen still in hand. Soon, the exam results will be posted on the official site and you'll see it for yourself, Su-ho said. I thought you'd appreciate the heads up. Still trying to process this, Joe managed to ask, why me though? It was the question on his mind, why him specifically? I have some plans in mind, and having a friendly journalist might come in handy, Su-ho replied. Taken aback by the blunt answer, Joe asked, but there are other journalists. I read your blog and saw that you're what they call a gold spoon, right? And yet you're working hard as a journalist. That's proof you have more professional pride than most, Su-ho replied. Joe couldn't help but laugh at that. It was blunt but true. Su-ho's reason for choosing him was because Joe wasn't just any journalist. He was a golden spoon who refused to write for favors. I remember reading that he doesn't take bribes because his family is well off, Su-ho thought. Joe's flashy yellow Ferrari earned him the nickname Golden Gyergy among his peers. And true to his reputation, Joe never wrote a single line in exchange for favors. Joe took a breath and responded, I appreciate the flattery, but I don't do partnerships based on that alone. No matter how much I may like a scoop, I'm not your lackey. Of course. I'm looking for a partner, not an underling, Su-ho clarified. A partner, you say? Let's be real, you're telling me this to inflate your worth, aren't you? So you're hoping for media attention before joining a guild? Sure, one could see it that way. But do you really think someone with my skills would rely on PR just to inflate my value? What? I'm after fame, Mr. Joe. I'm aiming to become a civil servant. What? Joe's mind stalled again, unable to process what Su-ho was saying. Su-ho, a potential top recruit for any major guild, was talking about becoming a civil servant. Most people want PR to join top guilds and raise their value, Joe replied. But you're saying you want to become a government hunter. Is this a joke? It's not. I've already made it clear to the relevant authorities that I'm joining the Hunter Association. Let's just say I have a strong sense of public duty. What? Joe looked utterly baffled, his face clearly reading, is this guy serious? To him, it seemed absurd that someone with Su-ho's potential would choose public service over a guild. Typically, getting media coverage is part of a strategy to join a large guild, right? Joe said. But here you are talking about the public sector. I'm serious. My life goal is to eliminate gates. Isn't that reason enough? Goodness. Joe had enough material to run a full story, but he was still lost. Everything about Su-ho's words sounded like something from an epic hero's journey, if not for his blunt attitude. Is he for real? Joe weighed his options, and after a while he decided to brush Su-ho off. All right, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not going to be your exclusive journalist. I write what I want and I'm going to pretend I didn't hear about your top score, he replied. Su-ho laughed. Joe's straightforwardness was refreshing. Then let's make a bet, Su-ho suggested. A bet? Yes. I'll prove to you that I'm not just a big talker. I'm at Pangyo right now. Pangyo? Yes, I just received my license and was planning to tackle the Tower of Trials. The Tower of Trials, a place where newly licensed players gathered to test their skills. Go on, Joe replied unimpressed. I'm going to conquer the tower alone. Excuse me? Yes, this is my next challenge. If I succeed, would you become my personal journalist and partner? Joe let out a chuckle, almost laughing at how ridiculous the offer was. Fine, if you really manage to solo the Tower of Trials, I'll write whatever you want and cover your stories, but I doubt it will happen. Good, in that case, feel free to join me in Pangyo if you'd like to see it yourself. With that, Su-ho ended the call, knowing the verbal agreement was enough. Joe wasn't a fool. Hanging up, Su-ho glanced up at the towering structure in the distance. It's been a while. Su-ho headed toward the entrance of the Tower of Trials. Chapter 16, The Tower of Trials. This place, often called a hunting ground, is one of the publicly managed gates overseen by the government, allowing players under level 20 to freely grow and develop. Su-ho's primary reason for coming here, as he told Joe Jin-HWI, was to clear the tower. However, his more fundamental reason, naturally, was rapid growth. After all, his level had essentially been reset to the beginning. In addition, I have to get my hands on it here, a hidden piece concealed only within the Pangyo Tower of Trials. That was one of Su-ho's objectives for coming to this place. Su-ho then checked his status screen. Ahn Su-ho, level 10, class healer, strength 20, health 20, mana 20, senses 10, bonus stats 0. He had deliberately not raised his senses. Compared to other stats, the senses stat, which activated features like dynamic vision and mana detection, was not immediately necessary. Having finished his preparations, Su-ho held his freshly printed hunter license and made his way to the entrance of the Tower of Trials. Tanker needed, looking for one melee dealer, we have a supporter. As he approached the entrance of the tower, he noticed a crowd of people. They were all waiting to form parties for hunting expeditions since party play was far more efficient than soloing in the Tower of Trials. Of course, with more members, the experience each person gains will decrease, but in the long run it's better to go in together. However, Su-ho had come with the intent to climb alone, as he'd told Jojin Hwi. He knew all there was to know about the Tower of Trials. Su-ho handed his license to the entrance staff member and requested entry. The staff member glanced back and forth between the license and Su-ho before asking, "Are you alone?" "Yes. Your license number shows you passed the exam just yesterday. Are you sure it wouldn't be better to join a party since it's your first time here?" Since the Tower of Trials was a public gate, all the staff managing it were civil servants, KHA members in other words. Hence the advice. Although the Tower of Trials was meant for beginner hunters under level 20, accidents still happened here. "No, thank you, I'm more comfortable on my own." Well, if you're sure. Even so, they couldn't force someone who insisted on going in alone. There was no rule against it. After paying a small entry fee, Su-ho stepped through the door opened by the staff, revealing a portal beyond it. Without hesitation, he walked straight into it, entering the Tower of Trials. You may quit the Tower of Trials at any time. The related system messages appeared as he entered the tower. He remembered all of this and quickly skipped through the instructions. There wasn't much to worry about in the Tower of Trials since one could quit at any stage. The moment I declare my intent to quit, I'll be teleported back to the entrance of the first floor. As long as he avoided pushing himself beyond his limits, there was minimal risk of death in the Tower of Trials. One reason beginner hunters favored this place. Entering the first floor, he found himself in an area about the size of a small stadium. You have entered the first floor. The first floor challenge will now begin. With that notification, slimes started appearing in his field of vision. Right, slimes on the first floor. Su-ho pulled a sword from his inventory. It was the beginner's sword granted by the system upon selecting his class. Although he'd purchased other weapons at Dongdaemun Market, for now the beginner's sword would suffice. Su-ho began swinging his sword, ready for a full-scale climb. Is he crazy? After hanging up, Jojin Hwi stared at Su-ho's phone number for a while. At first, he thought he must be a madman. But considering Su-ho's high exam score and the way he spoke, he didn't seem to be lying. What on earth is he planning? Despite the bizarre proposal, Joe's gut still pointed to Su-ho, something that weighed on his mind. Finally, after some deliberation, he made his decision. Well, who knows, if it works, great, if not, so be it. Jojin Hwi began drafting an article about Ahn Su-ho. According to Su-ho's memory, the official record for the Tower of Trials' highest floor cleared was the 49th floor. However, this was based on his previous life. The current known record was only 29 floors achieved through party play. It's only natural to rely on party play. The Tower of Trials raised the level of monsters proportionally with each ascending floor. For instance, on the 19th floor, players would encounter level 19 monsters. Therefore, those aiming to break records would form parties consisting of level 20 hunters, the maximum level allowed to enter the tower, as it was the most efficient way. Yet a player once broke this standard method. A man known as the Fortress King, Jang Pyong-ho, you have cleared the 18th floor, proceeding to the 19th floor. Once Su-ho had hunted every monster on the 18th floor, a portal to the next floor appeared. He stepped through the portal without hesitation, and as soon as he entered, the challenge began. You have entered the 19th floor. The 19th floor challenge will now begin. The monster on the 19th floor was a single creature. Its name was Red Geen, a red-skinned, white-haired monster with a single horn on its head, often nicknamed the Red Ogre. As soon as it spotted Su-ho, it charged toward him. In response, Su-ho swung his sword with explosive precision. Slash! The blow from his sword carved a deep wound into Red Geen's neck before it even reached his attack range. A fountain of blood erupted from the wound, and Red Geen collapsed to the ground dead without getting close to Su-ho. You have defeated Red Geen. You have cleared the 19th floor, proceeding to the 20th floor. After defeating Red Geen, a portal to the 20th floor appeared in front of him. But instead of heading to the portal, Su-ho approached Red Geen's body and turned it over. Unlike most tower monsters that faded away upon death, Red Geen was an exception, as he carried the hidden piece Su-ho sought. Su-ho tore off a bone necklace hanging from Red Geen's neck. Made of sharp animal teeth, the necklace itself couldn't be equipped. It wasn't a system item. But the necklace wasn't what he needed. It was the small key hidden among the bones. There it is. The key, made of bone and camouflaged among the other decorations, was hard to identify unless one knew what to look for. But Su-ho recognized it right away. After all, it was the alpha and omega of the famous Fortress King Jang Pyong-ho. Holding the key, Su-ho activated mana detection to scan his surroundings. Soon, he found a peculiar groove nearby, a keyhole described by Jang Pyung-ho. When he inserted the key, it fit perfectly. As he turned it, a click sounded and the key slipped further into the hole. You have discovered Red Gein's hidden lair, rumble. The system notification informed him that he had found Red Gein's lair. Simultaneously, a new rectangular portal appeared, shimmering in front of him. So this is the famous Fortress King's stronghold entrance. The Fortress King, Jang Pyung-ho, was once an ordinary, unremarkable hunter. One day, however, he found Red Gein's key in the Tower of Trials and acquired a unique skill, Pocket Dimension House. Though pocket dimension skills were relatively common, with many items in the world offering storage capabilities, Jang Pyung-ho's skill had a unique trait. In Jang Pyung-ho's pocket dimension house, living beings could enter. While traditional inventories or storage spaces couldn't contain living creatures like people or animals, Jang Pyung-ho's pocket dimension house allowed all life forms to enter. This was what made him world famous as the Fortress King. Once he barricaded himself inside, no one could pull him out. For that reason, Jang Pyung-ho had acquired several nicknames beyond Fortress King, including King of Turtling and King of Hiding. As Su-ho set foot in the Pocket Dimension House, the scenery around him transformed, revealing its interior. This is the Pocket Dimension House. It was Su-ho's first time inside the house, as only those permitted by Jang Pyung-ho could enter. Unlike a typical empty storage space, this place resembled the interior of a normal house, albeit arranged to Red Gein's taste. Of course, Su-ho could redecorate it as he pleased. Just then, the owner of the Pocket Dimension House has died. The Pocket Dimension House requires a new owner. Do you wish to become the new owner of the Pocket Dimension House? A prompt from the system. As expected, the Pocket Dimension House was a skill that bound itself to its owner. With its previous owner dead, it now awaited a new master. Su-ho nodded without hesitation. You are now the new owner of the Pocket Dimension House. Congratulations, you have acquired the Pocket Dimension House S. The Pocket Dimension House is now bound to you. The Pocket Dimension House will respond to your mana. An S-grade symbol was attached to the Pocket Dimension House, a clear indicator of its rank. However, no bonus stats were awarded, as this was simply a discovery, not an achievement of mastery. As the skill bound itself to Su-ho, the house's interior began to change. With a faint rumble, the space expanded, growing larger since Su-ho's mana surpassed that of Red Gein. Not only that, but the room's decor, initially set to Red Gein's taste, transformed to match Su-ho's vision of a clean, modern space, resembling a typical Korean apartment living room. So it really does respond to the user's mana. At that moment, the small key Su-ho had taken began to crumble and disintegrate. Chapter 17, it hadn't been erased or lost. To be precise, it had merged into the palm of Su-ho's left hand. When he examined his hand, he noticed the shape of a key etched there, a mark indicating ownership of the Pocket Dimension House, just as Jang Pyung-ho had described. The mark soon disappeared. According to Jang Pyung-ho, it would remain hidden unless he used the Pocket Dimension House. Su-ho clenched his left hand and thought, I finally have my own personal fortress. Calling it a fortress came from Jang Pyung-ho himself, as he had used the Pocket Dimension House like an impenetrable stronghold, especially for smuggling. From drugs to national treasures, even people. There was nothing he wouldn't handle. Indeed, with the Pocket Dimension House, any smuggling operation became incredibly easy, as it could store living creatures, unlike other pocket dimensions. Moreover, its space could be expanded as long as his mana stat was high enough. Because of this, Jang Pyung-ho had utilized his skill extensively for smuggling, earning him the titles of Smuggling King and Drug Lord. But even Jang Pyung-ho was eventually caught. Though he was practically invincible while inside the Pocket Dimension House, the drawback was that he couldn't leave once he entered. Thus, as soon as the Korean Hunter Association witnessed him entering the Pocket Dimension House, they surrounded the area and maintained a 24/7 watch until they captured him. It took them over 3 years to finally catch him. He was a stubborn one. He'd set up the Pocket Dimension House so well that he managed to hold out for over 3 years alone. Having secured the Pocket Dimension House, Su-ho stepped back out and headed to the next floor without hesitation. Meanwhile, as Su-ho continued climbing the Tower of Trials, small ripples spread through the hunter industry. The top scorer in this year's Hunter exam, Ahn Su-ho. Who is Ahn Su-ho? Such buzz was typical each year, as the top scorer of the Hunter exam always attracted immense attention as a rising star. Accordingly, domestic guilds began preparing to recruit Su-ho, as the top scorer held the highest expectations among all new hunters. However, just as guilds were getting ready, a new article was published that sent shockwaves through the industry. Exclusive: Ahn Su-ho revealed to be a graduate of Nexus Academy. Exclusive: Ahn Su-ho single-handedly cleared the Guro Station gate. These articles were strategic PR pieces released by Nexus Academy. Upon reading the news, guilds reluctantly backed off from recruiting him. If he was a Nexus Academy graduate, it meant he was a top prospect groomed by the Nexus Guild, the third largest guild in the industry. Hexagon and Prime were left feeling blindsided, as they'd assumed the competition was solely between them, only to be upstaged by an unexpected third player. Watching the flood of inquiries pouring into the academy, Kim Sue-hee, the director, couldn't suppress her smile. The $3 billion was well spent. Not only was the academy gaining prestige, but she even received praise from the guild leader and vice guild leader. However, neither Kim Sue-hee nor the Nexus Guild planned to stop there. Prime got to him first, doesn't matter, offer whatever it takes to recruit him, money isn't an issue. The Nexus Guild leader, like everyone else, was ambitious. As a leader, he didn't want to miss out on this rare opportunity. Kim Sue-hee felt the same, which is why she had already attempted to recruit Suho before. I failed last time, but this time I'll make it happen. This time, the guild leader's orders were clear, meaning they could offer even more enticing benefits than before. Just then, another article popped up. Exclusive, top scorer Ahn Su-ho, my dream is to become a civil servant hunter. The sudden release was not from their own press team. It was an article from PBS, Korea's top player broadcasting station, making it all the more credible. It was hard to believe. A top scorer could command the highest price as a private hunter, so why would he want to become a civil servant hunter? Could it be a clickbait tabloid article? Unlikely, as PBS wasn't a tabloid that spread false rumors. But hadn't Suho shown a positive response to her proposal? Confused, Kim Sue-hee read through the article carefully but still couldn't understand Suho's intentions. Why, had something happened, could the government have made him a secret offer behind their backs? Kim Sue-hee bit her lip and called the guild leader, determined not to give up on recruiting Suho. You have cleared the 29th floor. Proceeding to the 30th floor, who knows how much time had passed. By the time Suho had cleared 10 more floors, he finally succeeded in breaking the highest official record in the Tower of Trials. After clearing the 29th floor, a system message appeared, congratulating him on setting a new record. You have achieved the highest record in the Tower of Trials. For this extraordinary achievement, the system awards you with 5 bonus stat points. If you proceed to the 30th floor, your accomplishment will be broadcasted outside the tower. Anonymous mode is available if you prefer to remain unnamed. 5 bonus stat points. He would receive more every time he broke the highest record, which was why he felt a bit of regret. If the previous record had been set lower, he could have accumulated more bonus stats. After a brief moment of thought, Suho declined to reveal his name. While fame had its appeal, he felt it wasn't too late to reveal his identity after completing the next floor. Joe Jin-hwi, I'm sure you're watching. Though Joe had tried to put on a tough front, his journalist's curiosity likely prevented him from ignoring the action. By now, he had probably either come to Pangyo in person or was watching through a personal broadcasting platform. Suho hoped Joe Jin-hwi would be kept in suspense for as long as possible. Keeping his identity anonymous, Suho stepped through the portal to the next floor. The 29th floor has been cleared. A new challenger is attempting the 30th floor. The moment Suho chose to remain anonymous, the Tower of Trials began broadcasting his progress to those outside, just as it had notified him. Everyone who saw the announcement froze in place, astonished. 30th floor, is someone actually challenging the highest record? Who is it this time? The attempt to break the tower's record was always a hot topic among climbers of the Tower of Trials. And quite a few had managed to reach the 30th floor, as the monsters on the 29th floor were only level 29. By then, most party members' average level would exceed 25. However, the 30th floor had yet to be conquered due to a single daunting reason, the appearance of a golem, the first of its kind in the tower. Which team will be crushed this time? Why did they choose anonymity? Probably assumed they'd fail and decided not to reveal their identity. Maybe it's an internal test by a guild, could be. It's still better for their reputation to show their real name. That was true. In the hunter industry, proving your skill directly increased your value, and the Tower of Trials served as an effective method of demonstrating one's strength. While everyone speculated about the challenger's identity, one person stared at the tower's notification in disbelief. It was Joe Jin-hwi. After finishing his article, Joe had come to Pangyo on a whim. To his surprise, something extraordinary was indeed happening in the Tower of Trials. Ahn Su-ho, could it really be you? Ahn Su-ho, the solo conqueror of the Guro Station Gate, top scorer of the Hunter exam and the hottest name in the industry. However, something seemed odd. Su-ho had claimed he wanted fame, so why climb the tower anonymously? Could it be because of me? If that were the reason, Joe thought Su-ho was truly crazy. And if the anonymous player in the tower was indeed Ahn Su-ho, gulp. Joe swallowed nervously, his eyes gleaming as he grinned. Just then a new notification appeared. The 30th floor has been cleared. A new record has been set in the Tower of Trials. Upon seeing the message, Jin Hwi and the surrounding hunters' eyes widened in disbelief. He'd cleared the 30th floor so soon after the 29th, it wasn't a mistake. The system and the tower clearly indicated the 30th floor had been conquered, but the most shocking part was, the challenger is player Ahn Su-ho. Player Ahn Su-ho has begun the 31st floor challenge. Jin Hwi's eyes nearly popped out of his head as he read the message. The 31st floor has been cleared. A new record has been set in the Tower of Trials. The challenger is player Ahn Su-ho. Player Ahn Su-ho has begun the 32nd floor challenge. The 32nd floor has been cleared. A new record has been set in the Tower of Trials. The challenger is player Ahn Su-ho. Player Ahn Su-ho has begun the 33rd floor challenge. The 33rd floor has been cleared. A new record has been set in the Tower of Trials. The challenger is player Ahn Su-ho. Player Ahn Su-ho has begun the 34th floor challenge. With the record-breaking 30th floor cleared, Su-ho chose to reveal his name and the outside world erupted. The higher he climbed, the louder the buzz grew. Kim Soo-hee in particular was stunned. Ahn Su-ho is setting a new record in real time. Yes, ma'am, as you can see in the news, he's still climbing. At the Nexus Guild headquarters, Kim Soo-hee had urgently gathered the guild leader and vice guild leader for a meeting to discuss Su-ho's recruitment. However, they had to throw their plans aside due to the unexpected development. With the news broadcasting the situation in the Tower of Trials live, the guild leader quietly removed his glasses, his eyes wide with surprise. This may require an offer beyond our expectations. All the executives in the room nodded solemnly. Chapter 18, Kim Soo-hee wasn't the only one stunned. Young Chul-min was equally surprised. Su-ho is actually climbing the Tower of Trials. He pinched his cheek, wondering if he was dreaming, but it wasn't a dream. A grin crept up his face, lifting his spirits. Young Chul-min had seen Jin Hwi's exclusive report too. Could we really get an unprecedented talent like him to join our association? The thought alone was thrilling. And it wasn't just anyone, it was Ahn Su-ho. If he joined the Korean Hunter Association, he would be the equivalent of a triple S grade rookie. However, as Su-ho's achievements mounted, so did Young Chul-min's concerns. The benefits offered by the association were modest, hardly enough to attract such a high-caliber talent. Just then his phone rang. The caller ID showed it was the vice president. Young Chul-min squinted briefly. Both the vice president and president were people he didn't particularly like, but he picked up the call out of obligation. Yes, vice president. The vice president preferred to be called vice president rather than deputy president. It was an odd preference, but since it was the boss's choice, everyone complied, including Young Chul-min. A moment later, the vice president's voice came through the line. Where are you right now? I'm in Pangyo. You're there for the Tower of Trials. Yes, that's correct. You know Ahn Su-ho, don't you? How did he know that? After a moment of hesitation, Young Chul-min replied, We've met, but we're not particularly close. Doesn't matter, you know him, so that's good enough. Bring him in. For a moment, Young Chul-min's ears perked up. Wait. Are you saying you want me to recruit him for the association? What? No, I mean bring him in so he can take a photo with the president. Oh, he should have known. Why else would they call him out of the blue? Young Chul-min's face crumpled with disappointment. Unfazed, the vice president continued, Set it up so the president can get a picture with him, just come up with any excuse for the summons. Understood. The vice president hung up right after giving his instructions. For a moment, Young Chul-min had the urge to throw his phone, but he calmed himself. This is why all association executives should be hunters. The Korean Hunter Association was still a government department, which meant top positions like the president and vice president were usually filled by influential former politicians. The current president was a 5-term congressman, and the vice president a 4-term congressman. While having politicians as executives wasn't necessarily a bad thing, none of them were players, meaning they lacked understanding of the industry and often relied on impractical, bureaucratic solutions. This lack of understanding was partly why the association struggled to attract talented hunters. Hunters are impressive, sure, but what? You think we should spend that much on public servant salaries? Is this a corporation? Do you think taxpayers' money is meant for raising your salaries? If hunters didn't work for us, would the country collapse? Isn't that what guilds are for? Are we falling apart because we don't have enough public servant hunters? It was always the same rhetoric. Shaking his head, Young Chul-min returned toward the Tower of Trials, mentally crafting an excuse to summon Su-ho. You have cleared the 48th floor. A new record has been set in the Tower of Trials. For this remarkable achievement, you are awarded 5 bonus stat points. If you proceed to the 49th floor, your achievement will continue to be broadcast outside the tower. Time had passed, and Su-ho now stood before the portal leading to the final 49th floor. Before stepping through, he checked his status screen. Status: Ahn Su-ho. Level 39, Class Healer, Strength 95, Health 95, Mana 91, Senses 39, Bonus Stats 5, Level 39. In addition to the stats gained with each level and the 5 bonus stats granted every 10 levels, the bonus stats he received for setting new records in the Tower of Trials had been a major contributor to his current status. These stat bonuses are exactly why Jang Pyong-ho became so powerful. It wasn't just the Pocket Dimension House that made Jang Pyong-ho a big player. Initially, he had focused on growing stronger through the stats earned in the tower. After building his reputation, he'd moved into smuggling. After investing his bonus stats into mana, Su-ho headed for the portal to the 49th floor, where Jang Pyong-ho had failed. Player Ahn Su-ho has begun the 49th floor challenge. The scene shifted and then, ROARRR, the tower dragon uses fear. You are now in a state of fear. You are immobilized. The tower dragon, guardian of the 49th floor and the one foe Jang Pyong-ho had never defeated, emerged. The master of the Tower of Trials and its final boss. Seeing the tower dragon, Su-ho couldn't help but smile. He had always wanted to see it in person. Finally, I get to face you. Above the tower dragon's head, he read its information. Tower Dragon LV, 49A level 49 Tower Dragon, the only being in the Tower of Trials that Jang Pyong-ho had encountered. Su-ho's blood boiled with excitement. Though he knew the strategy to defeat it thanks to Jang Pyong-ho, he still felt a thrill. After admiring it for a moment, Su-ho used Cure to break free from his fear. You used Cure. Fear status is removed. Fortunately, Cure could dispel the fear effect, likely due to the skill's upgraded rank from his recent leveling. Su-ho's Cure was now at C rank as player class skills increased by 1 level every 10 levels. Su-ho began circling the floor's perimeter. The terrain had changed, transforming into an open coliseum with a large stone tower at its center. The western dragon-shaped tower dragon clung to the stone pillar like a lizard. Seeing Su-ho move, the enraged tower dragon roared once again. ROARRR. However, this time the fear effect didn't take hold. Surviving one fear attack had granted Su-ho a minor resistance to it. Let's see just how strong this dragon is, the one Jang Pyong-ho couldn't defeat. Su-ho stepped forward and broke into a sprint toward the tower dragon. The tower dragon swung its massive front claw at him, crashing against the stone tower. Su-ho leapt high into the air as sharp stone pillars shot up from the ground beneath him. It was the tower dragon's earth claw technique, as Jang Pyong-ho had warned him. Just as expected, the tower dragon used earth claw several more times, but knowing how to evade it, Su-ho dodged the attacks easily. He quickly closed the distance and leapt once more, thud whoosh. He bounced off the rough parts of the stone tower, soaring higher. With his strength stat over 90, his jumping power was incredible. Now at eye level with the tower dragon, the enraged dragon lunged at Su-ho with its jaws, but Su-ho twisted his body midair, dodging the attack by a hair's breadth. Chomp! The dragon's teeth snapped together in empty air. Using the momentum, Su-ho stepped on its fang and leapt again. You have high proficiency in jumping. The system is evaluating your talent. Congratulations. You have acquired the skill Jump B. Su-ho had acquired the jump skill. It didn't surprise him as it felt like a natural progression. I didn't even realize I hadn't learned jump yet. No matter, it was better late than never. With the skill now at his disposal, Su-ho's jump power increased significantly. He sprang off the stone tower again, finally reaching a height where he could look down on the tower dragon. The inverse scale should be near the top of its head, right? Su-ho hadn't climbed this high just to attack randomly. He was aiming for the dragon's weak spot, a crucial scale known as the inverse scale on its head. Among dragon-type monsters, the inverse scale was a universally known weakness. And though Jang Pyong-ho had pointed it out, Su-ho was already familiar with this common knowledge. Amid the sea of dark blue scales, he spotted one that was distinctly teal. There it is. He had located the inverse scale. Now he just needed to strike it. As gravity began pulling him down, Su-ho flipped himself over, preparing for a vertical dive. Then he aimed directly at the tower dragon. Crash! The accelerating blade struck the tower dragon's scales. As expected, its scales were incredibly durable. Realizing the dragon's defenses were too strong, Su-ho quickly retreated, as his beginner's sword was now chipped and unusable. Just then, the tower dragon becomes enraged after its inverse scale is attacked. The tower dragon uses Dragon Fear. ROARRR. Wounded in its weak spot, the tower dragon let out a frenzied roar. There was no way to avoid the sound-based attack, and its effects were immediate. Unlike regular monster fear, Dragon Fear operated on a completely different level. You are now in a state of fear. You are immobilized. You are experiencing auditory hallucinations. You can no longer hear sounds. Multiple debuffs rained down on him. His vision blurred and a ringing filled his ears. Feeling the effects closing in, Su-ho quickly raised his hand and shouted, "Enter!" entering the Pocket Dimension House. With a flash of light from his left hand, Su-ho vanished completely. Left alone, the tower dragon went into a furious rampage. Chapter 19. Upon entering the Pocket Dimension House, Su-ho struggled with the overwhelming status effects. Dragon Fear. It was leagues beyond ordinary fear, and its effects were severe. Clenching his jaw, Suho pulled out a purification potion he'd bought at Dongdaemun and drank it. You have consumed the purification potion. Purification effect activated, fear status removed, auditory hallucinations removed. Once he consumed the purification potion, the debilitating effects lifted, and Suho finally lay down, breathing a sigh of relief. I thought I was a goner. Dragon fear was one reason Jang Pyong-ho had never defeated the Tower Dragon. He had only seen it once and had been forced to flee. But thanks to Jang Pyong-ho's experiences, Suho knew about the dragon's capabilities and came prepared with the potion. His cure skill wasn't enough to remove the high-grade debuff of dragon fear. Only A-level or higher cure skills could be effective against it. This cost a fortune, but the scholarship was worth it. Without it, he would never have been able to afford something as expensive as a purification potion. And it's not like one exposure to dragon fear makes you immune. Guess I'll just have to keep dodging it. While most fear effects could be overcome once experienced, dragon fear was different. As one of the most powerful fears, resistance could only be built with special defensive items or skills. For now, this meant that every time the dragon used fear, Suho would need to retreat to the pocket dimension house and down another purification potion. No wonder Jang Pyong-ho couldn't take it down with these tactics. Jang Pyong-ho had tried to poison the dragon, hoping it would weaken over time while he waited safely in the pocket dimension house. But the tower dragon was unaffected, and combined with its dragon fear and earth claw, it was nearly impossible to approach. But this time, I'm going to defeat the tower dragon and clear the Tower of Trials on my own. Suho, now recovered, checked his status screen once again. Ahn Su-ho, level 39, class healer, strength 95, health 95, mana 96. Senses 39, bonus stats 0. With his mana at 96, he was close to his goal but still a bit short. Suho pulled out a skill book and several items he'd bought from Dongdaemun, starting with the skill book. You have learned the basic combination formula. Skill books were one of the most common ways for players to learn new skills. While skill books usually took the form of a book, rare skills could appear in various objects. This basic combination formula was a low-level skill but would serve Suho's needs. Using the combination skill, he conjured the unique cauldron interface and placed the items he'd collected. You placed Nameless Thief's sock in the cauldron. You placed Nameless Musician's instrument in the cauldron. You placed Nameless Cleaner's broom in the cauldron. These items, seemingly useless, were actually items left behind in gates collected as loot or rewards. They were classified as junk items because most people didn't know their true value. Suho began the combination process. Combining, wait, the cauldron's state seems unusual. Suddenly, a brilliant light poured from the cauldron. Congratulations, a rare treasure has emerged from the basic combination formula. You have obtained the first nameless ring, S+. For this incredible achievement, the system grants you 10 bonus stat points. As expected, Suho grinned as he examined the item. First nameless ring. Rank. S+, silent presence, invisible footsteps, vanished traces. A combination of items once owned by people who led quiet, unnoticed lives, this item has become a rare treasure. The colorless solitude S effect is permanently active when equipped. Items that bore the first designation were rare treasures, usually of S-rank quality. In addition, the plus indicated that this item could grow with its user, meaning its effect would become more powerful as Suho leveled up. In his previous life, he'd only possessed an A-rank nameless ring because a notorious disassembler known as the Mad Disintegrator had destroyed the original. But this time, Suho had managed to obtain it for himself, a feat that wouldn't have been possible until much later. Suho slipped the ring onto his finger, smiling, all for the bonus stats. The ring adjusted perfectly to his finger and then vanished, becoming intangible. Suho opened his status screen again. Ahn Su-ho, level 39, class healer. Strength 95, health 95, mana 96. Senses 39, bonus stats 10. With 10 bonus stats in reserve, Suho allocated 4 of them to mana. Your mana stat has reached 100. Your mana stat has leveled up to red. The moment mana hit 100, its value reset to 1, a red stripe appearing beside the stat, along with an R to denote the red level. Suho chuckled. My first red stat at level 39, this growth is insane. In this world, each stat gained a new color every time it reached a multiple of 100. Players referred to this phenomenon as the color system, and the highest recorded level was purple at around 700. Suho in his previous life had reached purple in strength but had never imagined he'd achieve such rapid progress so early. With the remaining points, Suho invested 5 into strength, bringing it to red level as well, then added the final point to health. He checked his updated status on Suho. Level 39, class healer, strength R1, health 96, mana R1, senses 39, bonus stats 0. Preparation complete, Suho reached into his inventory for the key item that would help him take down the tower dragon. a worn spear he'd bought from a hardware shop. To awaken this, I needed at least 100 mana. Now that he met the requirement, he began infusing the spear with mana. Mana is being infused into the spirit within is beginning to awaken. The spear vibrated, drawing mana from him at an astonishing rate. But this time, Su-ho was able to withstand it thanks to his red-level mana stat. Pouring his energy into the spear, Su-ho continued until the mana absorption slowed and nearly stopped. Flash, a dark light pulsed from the once-worn spear, revealing a sleek, polished weapon. Mana infusion complete. The consciousness of Gyeong's spear has awakened. Congratulations, you have partially awakened the spirit within Gyeong's spear. Item information has been updated. You have acquired Gyeong's spear A+. Su-ho grinned as he examined the new spear. Gyeong's spear, also known as the Spear of Returning Shadows, was a legendary weapon once wielded by a player called the Shadow Lord or Yongwang. Su-ho had finally gained possession of one of his former treasures. Chapter 20, Su-ho grinned at the system notification. To think I'd actually get my hands on one of the Shadow Lord's treasures. The Shadow Lord wouldn't emerge as a powerful player for several years yet. Right now he was still an unawakened civilian. It was only after obtaining the Gyeong spear that his rise began. Just as Jang Pyong-ho's powers were tied to his pocket dimension house, the Shadow Lord's strength stemmed from this spear. But in this life, the Shadow Lord would not appear. The Gyeong spear, his alpha and omega, now belonged to Su-ho. Better in my hands than in a criminal's. Su-ho checked the spear's description. Gyeong spear. Rank. A +1 of the Shadow Lord's treasures. Made from the bones of a shadow divine beast. The first person to awaken its consciousness will be recognized as its owner. The spear can be summoned from the owner's shadow using Gyeong A. If damaged, the spear can be repaired and resummoned from the shadows with Shadow Regeneration A, provided shadow and mana are present. The spear's A+ rating was due to it being part of a set. When combined with other treasures of the Shadow Lord, the power would increase synergistically, potentially reaching an S+ rank. Su-ho was determined to collect all the Shadow Lord's treasures, knowing they would open new strategic possibilities. To test Gyeong's shadow summoning ability, he threw the spear far away and reached toward his shadow. The spear miles away reappeared instantly in his hand, emerging from his shadow. Perfect. With his preparations complete, Su-ho opened the exit portal of the pocket dimension house. Through it, he could see the tower dragon now resting, its massive form attached to the stone pillar, recovering. Attacking from here would be ideal. But from within the pocket dimension, Su-ho couldn't launch attacks outward. He would have to face the dragon directly. Taking a deep breath, he gripped the Gyeong spear and dashed out, running up the stone pillar to leap at the dragon. Leap activated. Before the dragon could stir, he hurled the spear at its weak spot, the reverse scale. You have demonstrated high proficiency in spear throwing. The system is evaluating your talent. Congratulations, you have learned spear throwing B. With newfound skills, Su-ho's throw was fast, accurate, and powerful. The spear struck the dragon's reverse scale, fracturing the protective layer. Entering pocket dimension house. The tower dragon is enraged by the attack on its reverse scale. The tower dragon uses dragon fear. The moment Su-ho entered the safety of the pocket dimension, the dragon roared in fury, but he managed to escape the effects of dragon fear just in time. Hit and run it is. Although this method was tedious, it was also effective. Opening the exit, Su-ho observed the dragon as it gradually calmed down. Notably, the damage to its scale hadn't fully healed. He planned to keep this up, attacking repeatedly to weaken the dragon. Time passed in this relentless cycle. The tower dragon's strength is waning. The dragon's power has dropped below 10% after repeated attacks to its reverse scale. Su-ho's sustained strategy of wearing down the dragon had proven successful, but now a new problem emerged. The dragon was no longer sleeping. It had become highly vigilant, watching its surroundings carefully. No more hit and run. It's a straight fight now. There was no other choice. Steeling himself, Su-ho rested briefly, then stepped out and hurled the Gyeong spear once more. Spear throwing activated. With practice, Su-ho's aim and power had improved considerably. Your proficiency in spear throwing has increased. Your skill level has risen to A. The spear struck the dragon's reverse scale again, sending a shattering noise through the cavern. The tower dragon is enraged by the attack on its reverse scale. The tower dragon uses dragon fear. A rush of status effects hit Su-ho. You are in a state of fear. Your body is immobilized. You experience auditory hallucinations. You cannot hear any sounds. Su-ho felt his body stiffen and his senses warp. Before he could fall, he managed to pull out a purification potion and drank it just in time. Purification potion consumed. Status effects removed. After stabilizing, Su-ho threw the Gyeong spear at a high point on the stone pillar, used it as a foothold, and leapt toward the dragon's head. You have demonstrated high proficiency in leaping. The system is re-evaluating your skill. Congratulations, leaping has been upgraded to a level. Now lighter and more agile, Su-ho found himself face to face with the dragon. The enraged creature roared, unleashing another fear effect right in his face. This time, however, it was less intense and Su-ho held his ground. Seizing the moment, he summoned the Gyeong spear and threw it directly into the dragon's eye. Spear throwing activated. The dragon, proud and fearless, underestimated the attack. The spear struck, embedding deeply in its eye. Kra, the tower dragon uses dragon fear. You are in a state of fear. The immense pain pushed the dragon into a frenzy, and another wave of dragon fear shook Su-ho. Gritting his teeth, he downed another purification potion and scrambled up the dragon's massive form, clinging to his weapon and enduring the dragon's wild thrashes. His tenacity paid off. Your tenacity in holding on is commendable. The system is assessing your ability. Congratulations, you have learned Clinging B. With the system's boost, Su-ho maintained his grip, even as the dragon threw itself against the cavern walls and rolled across the floor in agony. Using healing light to sustain himself, Su-ho managed to keep hold. Finally, after a prolonged struggle, the dragon's movement slowed, its energy depleted. This is it. Su-ho pulled himself up and approached the exposed, damaged scale, now a vulnerable spot of exposed flesh. Drawing a fresh sword, he drove it deep into the dragon's reverse scale, twisting to anchor himself. The dragon let out a final, furious roar as its body convulsed, then fell, its strength utterly spent. As the life faded from the dragon's eyes, it collapsed, its massive form plummeting to the ground with a resounding crash. Chapter 21. Boom, the tower dragon falls to the ground, but Ahn Su-ho is nowhere to be found. Just before the tower dragon hits the ground, Su-ho, who had stepped on it and leapt, barely managed to grab onto a stone tower, avoiding the fall. It was then. You have defeated the tower dragon. Floor 49 has been cleared. You have set a new record for the Tower of Trials. You are the first to successfully conquer the Tower of Trials. The system rewards you with 10 bonus stats for your great achievement. The system is now evaluating your great challenge. The fallen tower dragon finally breathes its last. At the same time, countless system notifications appear, making his vision blur. Finally, he had succeeded in killing it. Finally, as he looked at the flood of notifications, his tension eased. However, Su-ho did not let his guard down and with great care climbed down from the stone tower before lying down on the ground, taking a deep breath. But his lips couldn't help but curl upwards. It was natural. He had succeeded in hunting the tower dragon, a creature no one had ever caught in both his past and present life. It was then, your level has increased. All of your stats have increased by 1. You have gained 1 bonus stat. You have reached level 40. The system desires you to grow even stronger. The system gifts you more power. You have gained 5 bonus stats. All healer class skills have leveled up. You have learned Healing Spirit B. His level had increased. Though there was only one tower dragon, it was the final boss and had a hefty amount of experience which allowed Su-ho to level up. Thanks to this, Su-ho had reached level 40, and with this milestone, he had received another system reward. The job skill he obtained this time was Healing Spirit. Su-ho quickly checked the details of the Healing Spirit skill. Healing Spirit. Grade B creates an area that restores health. Creatures within the Healing Spirits area will slowly recover health, and there is no limit to the number of individuals within the area. A weapon must be used as a totem to summon the Healing Spirit. Healing Spirit. This was Su-ho's first area healing skill. Su-ho thought back to Isabella's massive Healing Spirit, which could heal an entire battlefield. This must evolve into its final form too. Just after Su-ho finished confirming the skill, another notification popped up. The system has finished evaluating your challenge. The system highly praises your great challenge and has decided to reward you with a fitting prize. You have acquired Dragon Blood S+. The evaluation was complete, but what he received was something he had never expected. Su-ho jumped up in shock after reading the system notification. Dragon Blood, the Dragon Blood I know, and it appeared here. He couldn't believe his eyes. Dragon Blood had been the signature skill of a player known as Dragon Rider, a monstrous figure from his past life. But the Dragon Rider said he acquired Dragon Blood not from the Tower of Trials but from another gate, the Dragon Mountains. Su-ho remembered the name of the gate clearly, as it had left a strong impression on him. This meant that one of two things had happened. Either the Dragon Rider had lied, or Dragon Blood could also be obtained from the Tower of Trials. But in the end, it didn't matter. The important thing was that Su-ho had now obtained Dragon Blood, a skill that symbolized the Dragon Rider and his roots. Su-ho immediately checked the details of Dragon Blood. Dragon Blood. Grade S+, the great bloodline of the dragon. Those who possess dragon blood can wield the strength of dragons, even if they were not born as dragons, depending on their effort. LV1 Dragon Blood, Intimidation S, Dragon Spirit S, LV2, Locked, Unlock Conditions. Reach level 50, Unknown, LV3, Locked, Unlock Conditions Unknown, LV4, as expected. This was the Dragon Blood Su-ho had seen before, the growth-type skill he had encountered in his past life. Moreover, Su-ho had already unlocked the first stage of the Dragon Blood Awakening effect. Thanks to this, his intimidation skill, which was previously A ranked, had naturally increased to S rank. To think I'd obtained Dragon Blood this way. Su-ho couldn't hide his smile as he thought about how much stronger he would become in this life compared to his past, all thanks to this one skill. At that moment, the Tower Dragon's corpse began to slowly disappear. It was only natural. Unlike monsters from gates like Red Gain, the monsters in the tower would quickly disappear in accordance with the rules. But then, the Gyeong Spear reacts to the Tower Dragon's shadow. The Gyeong Spear absorbs the Tower Dragon's shadow. The Gyeong Spear has been strengthened. It started. Su-ho narrowed his eyes. That was because the Gyeong Spear had a special function. The Gyeong Spear has completely absorbed the Tower Dragon's shadow. Mana supply is sufficient. The Gyeong Spear's consciousness has awakened. Congratulations, you have partially awakened the consciousness of the Gyeong Spear. The item's information has been updated. You have obtained Gyeong Spear S+. When all the notifications appeared, Su-ho couldn't help but grin in satisfaction. Though it wasn't mentioned in the item's information, there was a hidden option in the Gyeong Spear. That was its shadow-devouring ability. While the Gyeong Spear was a plus-grade item that usually responded to the owner's influence, sometimes it would evolve or unlock hidden abilities as it grew. Such weapons were often called growth-type weapons in the world. Su-ho checked the updated information for the Gyeong Spear. Gyeong Spear. Grade, S+ Gyeong Spear with Stage 2 Consciousness awakened. Recognizes the first person to awaken its consciousness as its master, and can summon Gyeong S from the owner's shadow. A broken Gyeong Spear can be repaired and resummoned through Shadow Regeneration S, using only Shadow and Mana. Can use Shadow Binding S to bite the target's shadow and immobilize their movements. While the target's shadow is pierced by the Shadow Fang, they will suffer from Shadow Bleeding S, taking bleeding damage every second. 2 abilities. Not only had the A-grade option been upgraded to S-grade, but 2 new S-grade skills were added, bringing the total to 4. Su-ho silently smiled. As expected, a growth-type weapon. It's on a completely different level from ordinary weapons. However, there was one thing that disappointed him. This wasn't a sword but a spear. Of course, he already had a sword in mind for a weapon of his own. Eventually, the Tower Dragon's corpse completely disappeared, but in place of the Tower Dragon, something remained. Su-ho approached it and found it to be a fang about the size of a human fist. His eyes widened in disbelief. Could it be a fang? And it was sharp. Su-ho quickly checked its information, thinking it can't be Dragon Fang. Grade S, the Fang of the Great Dragon. Anyone struck by the Dragon Fang is cursed with irreparable S, a curse that prevents recovery. Su-ho shivered as he checked the item information. It was exactly what he had feared. To think I'd obtain a Dragon's Fang here. Dragon byproducts by their nature were S-grade materials. However, they were incredibly difficult to gather, and only byproducts from purebred dragons, not just any dragon, had this kind of value. Even finding one was a rare occurrence. Even the world's greatest swordsman, Su-ho, had only seen 2 dragons in his entire life. Su-ho's eyes sparkled. I can use this for crafting. This was an unexpected, excellent material. It was, of course, meant for crafting the best possible items, so its use was already decided. He'll like this. Of course, someone else would get their hands on it. Eventually, everything was settled. Perhaps because of the double joy, Su-ho didn't feel any pain anymore. He made his way toward the exit portal that appeared before him. The Tower Dragon has been defeated. Floor 49 has been cleared. The Tower of Trials has been conquered. The conqueror is Ahn Su-ho player. The Tower of Trials is now forcibly clearing all players. The Tower of Trials was conquered. Thanks to this, the already noisy world stirred by Su-ho exploded once more. No way really cleared it. So the Tower of Trials can actually be conquered. Wait, didn't he just pass the Hunter exam today? Ahn Su-ho, he's a god. Ahn Su-ho, he's a god. Mom, I want to be Ahn Su-ho when I grow up. Offline and online, chaos erupted. Not only that, but journalists, YouTubers, and ordinary people flocked to the tower entrance to see Su-ho. After the tower was cleared, everyone scrambled to publish their articles. When Su-ho finally appeared through the exit portal, everyone outside the safe line started taking photos with flashes. Click, click, click. Ahn Su-ho, look this way. Ahn Su-ho, just one word. Ahn Su-ho, Ahn Su-ho. Su-ho, having exited the tower, stood inside the safe line that was reserved for the conquerors. This was a place that only conquerors could enter, like a trophy pedestal. Su-ho looked up at the sky. It was so clear. The sun hadn't even set yet. With a satisfied expression, Su-ho surveyed the surroundings, and soon his gaze met that of Jojin Hwi, who was staring at him in a daze. Su-ho grinned and immediately called him. The recipient, of course, was Jojin Hwi. Seeing who the caller was, Jojin Hwi awkwardly answered the phone while still locking eyes with Su-ho. Hello, how's it going? Do you believe me now? He had no words, that madman, to think he really solo cleared the Tower of Trials. Was that why? Jojin HWI, finally feeling at ease, brushed his long hair back and laughed. I know you're a crazy guy, right? If you're not confident, say it now. I'll switch to another reporter. To be a big person, you have to play in the big league. I'm confident. All right. You brought the car, right? Yes, I brought it. The yellow Ferrari, right? The symbol of the Golden Press. Get it ready. I'm going to the parking lot. Start the engine and wait. Hearing this, Jojin HWI chuckled. How did he know about the car? Still, he followed the order and went to get the car ready, and Su-ho looked around again. At that moment, black vans started to approach, cutting through the crowd. When the vans stopped, people poured out, and Su-ho instantly recognized who they were. They were staff from the Great Sword Alliance. Chapter 22. Su-ho smiled upon seeing them. I was wondering when they'd show up. The staff quickly formed a human barricade, blocking the crowd's access. Through this barricade, Young Chulmin appeared, standing beyond the safe line, gazing at Su-ho while dialing his phone. The recipient, of course, was Su-ho. Su-ho answered the phone and asked, "Hello, team leader." Su-ho, I don't know if I'm dreaming or seeing this for real. It's real, team leader, unless you've been using some kind of drug. I would never do that. Su-ho, you're always more than I imagined. Anyway, would you please move with us to the association? May I ask why? It's an unprecedented incident. We thought the tower would never be conquered. The government has been managing it as a public gate. I know that, but there's no reason for me to go to the association, right? There's no official reason to do so. It was obvious. Young Chulmin was probably ordered by the president or vice president to bring him in. The reason? Probably for a photo op. Those former members of parliament were always so meticulous about their image management. They probably told him to bring me along for some staged photo. Chulmin's been involved in this kind of stuff often. That's why Su-ho wasn't planning on going to the association anytime soon. If he went, it would be on his terms or out of necessity, not because those two had called him to take free pictures. Upon hearing Su-ho's words, Young Chulmin hesitated and spoke up. That's true, but considering the scale of the incident, we still need to conduct an investigation. You didn't investigate when other major guilds cleared a hard gate like this. If you need any information, just make a separate request. Young Chulmin fell silent. He had nothing to say, but despite that, Young Chulmin wasn't going to give up. Even though he was just a powerless civil servant, he had become a team leader at a young age because of his competence. I understand, but would it be okay if we at least escorted you outside? If we don't move carefully, there could be a stampede. Don't worry, I can leave on my own. I'll contact you again soon, team leader. At that moment. Young Chulmin was bewildered. Su-ho, who had been standing right in front of him, suddenly vanished. It wasn't just him, others around also noticed. Where'd he go? Where did he go? What's going on? Hey, where's Ahn Su-ho? But Su-ho, without any hesitation, walked past them and exited the Tower of Trials. Monochrome Solitude is activated, thanks to the first Mumumu synthesized for stat boosts. Su-ho leisurely walked out and spotted the yellow Ferrari, ready for departure, at a nearby parking lot. He got into the passenger seat. The moment the passenger door opened, Jojin HWI was startled and immediately on guard. You scared me. Wait, Su-ho, let's go now. How did you get out? I managed to avoid them. That's weird. I was keeping an eye on you through the side and rearview mirrors. Even if he kept watching, how could he have seen Su-ho? No matter how hard a regular person looked, the first Mumumu caused cognitive distortion. Soon enough, the yellow Ferrari roared to life and pulled out onto the highway. Once on the highway, Jojin HWI pulled out a business card from his pocket and said, "Allow me to formally introduce myself. I'm Jojin HWI, senior reporter at PBS. At PBS, reporters have a ranking system starting from trainee reporters to full reporters, senior reporters, and eventually lead and chief reporters. In company terms, Jojin HY's rank was equivalent to an assistant manager." Su-ho responded, "Ahn Su-ho, I've already introduced myself by phone, so I don't need to repeat it, right? Of course. You've told me everything I needed to know, but can I ask you one thing? Of course, you're a reporter after all. I've been thinking about this and I just can't understand. Why did you choose to become a civil servant? With your skills, you could be called anywhere, so why this?" Su-ho smiled faintly and answered, "Money, sure, I'd probably get paid more, but no matter how strong a private guild is, it can't match the power of the government." At this, Jojin HY's eyes widened in surprise. He had never heard anyone interpret it this way. Are you serious? Of course. But if you think about it, don't private guilds have more power? Their collective force is a lot stronger than the national hunters' combined strength. Even so, they're still just civilian hunters. And why does that matter? Honestly, if it were just about power, they could have started a coup already. But what would they really gain? At best, a brief feeling of achievement. The only place where they can truly shine is within the infrastructure the government has built. True, Su-ho wasn't wrong. Of course, if they went abroad, the treatment they'd receive could match or exceed what they'd get in Korea, but could they ever truly be satisfied living in a foreign land, especially as native Koreans? The answer was no. Why do people who flee overseas because of money or military service issues always want to return to Korea? No matter how luxuriously they lived abroad, Koreans born and raised in their homeland could never be completely satisfied in foreign countries. So no matter how strong a private guild might be, it wouldn't dare cross the line against the government. If they wanted to enjoy power, it had to be within Korea. Suho continued, as I've said before, I genuinely want to end the gates. But ending them as an individual is impossible, so I needed an affiliation, and I chose the government as the most effective means. I see, but you know this, right? Among the Korean players I know. No, among all Korean players in history, no one has made an impact as big as yours. There have been others, but they were never as impressive as you. At those words, Suho thought of some of the historic star players. But even in his past life, those players were overshadowed by Suho in terms of recognition and impact. It wasn't surprising. Suho lightly nodded and said, I know. That's why I'm even more determined to join the government. Are you going to apply for the public exam this time? But no matter how I think about it, it seems like such a waste to put someone with your talent in a grade-9 field position. I'm not aiming for grade-9. Huh. Then are you going for grade-7? No, I'm aiming for the grade-5 public exam. Huh, for a moment Joe Jinh's mouth dropped open. Are you serious? You keep asking if I'm serious, but I'm always serious. Wow, by the way, don't write about this in the article. Huh. Why not? I'm planning a build-up in the future and it's too early to reveal it now. Can I know what it is? Sure, there's no harm in telling you. At Suho's answer, Joe Jinh's mouth slowly dropped open once again. Is that the plan? That's why I asked you not to write about it. Good idea, but did you just come up with that idea? Could it possibly be related to a Nexus Academy scholarship student? Or are you actually from Nexus Academy? I don't think so though, Suho laughed at that. Well, I can't disclose contract details. Come on, I won't be going around spreading it. I'm not blind to information that could help catch someone like you. That'd be a big mistake. Suho, understanding Joe Jinh's perspective, decided to share a bit of the truth to build some rapport. Actually, I was the one who proposed the scholarship. It's not that rare. So that's it, but you must have been pretty short on money, right? Well, I just recently dropped out. Oh, right. You mentioned dropping out due to problems in the department. It was an old memory, so there was no real anger about it. Realizing the conversation was drifting, Suho naturally changed the topic. Anyway, I don't really care about that anymore. I'll help you create more buzz, so feel free to use me for exclusive reports and grow your influence in the company. This time, Joe Jinhwi smiled. So you're planning to make good use of me, huh? If I'm going to be friends with a reporter, I might as well make it useful for both of us. Joe Jinhwi nodded and said, in that case, we don't need to arrange any special interview spots like newsroom. Just keep up the exclusive coverage on you and your presence will rise. Suho agreed. Exactly. I'll only release official statements through you so there's no need to make a big fuss. Then it's all easy for me. I won't have to chase after scoops anymore. By the way, are you heading home? For now, yes. Are you sure? By now people must be waiting outside your house having dug up all your personal info. It's fine. I'll get in the same way I got out of the tower. Don't do that. Why don't you stay at my place for a while? At your place? I'm not suggesting anything weird. I live alone in a big house. If you're okay with it, you can stay in the guest room. The security's tight, so only residents can get in. Where do you live? Kaiser Cheongdam. Wow, Kaiser Cheongdam. It was a luxurious residential area worth hundreds of billions of won, one of the top-tier areas in the city. It truly matched the golden reputation of a reporter like Joe Jinhwi. Suho asked, that's quite a place. But with a place like that, I assume you're not just from a regular wealthy family, right? I know you're a golden spoon, but there are different levels of being a golden spoon. But Kaiser Cheongdam wasn't exactly a place for just any wealthy person to live. Joe Jinhwi smiled quietly and replied, not just any golden spoon. Well, I'm the youngest son of the Dsan Group chairman. Wait, what? Suho's eyes widened in disbelief. Joe Jinhwi casually continued, it's not a big deal, but you know Dsan Group, right? I'm the youngest son of the chairman. Wait, but the chairman of Dsan Group is… My older brothers have different mothers. My mom was his concubine, so I'm the child of a concubine. A half-blood? Oh, this is a secret I haven't shared with anyone at the company, but since we're likely to be seeing each other often, I thought I'd let you know. By the way, although my father gave me a lot, I have no influence in Dsan Group. I don't have any shares. I even turned down an offer for a subsidiary. Interesting, right? Maybe we'll become even closer than we expected. Suho smiled, feeling the connection. Maybe, just maybe, they would become closer than either of them had anticipated. Boom, the yellow Ferrari roared across the highway. Chapter 23. Suho thought he had seen the best places even during his days as a swordsman, but Kaiser Qingdam turned out to be far better than he had imagined. I've given you the password, so feel free to treat this place like your own home. Oh, and we have emergency healers in the community facilities, so feel free to use them if you need. Of course, your privacy will be respected. Seems like the expensive places really are different, but I'll handle the healing myself, didn't you see? Ah, you really are a healer. At Jin Hy's surprised question, Suho demonstrated healing light and Jin Hwi let out a wry laugh. I had seen the information, but I didn't really believe it. Why? Which healer in the world clears the Tower of Trials alone? Normally, healers join guilds and level up steadily. Anyway, if you press the community app on the pad here, you can handle everything from meals to shopping right from the house. I have to go to the office for now as I'm still on shift. Suho responded with a smile as he listened, and once Jin Hwi left, he was finally left alone. This house is great. From the view of the Han River to the interior, it looked like a luxury hotel suite. There were so many rooms, too, it truly was Kaiser Qingdam. Suho relaxed his senses and started searching for any hidden cameras just in case. Back in the day, I was quite the expert at finding surveillance cameras, but he couldn't find a single one, of course. This was the house of the youngest son of a conglomerate. There was no way there would be cameras here. Still, it never hurt to check, as the saying goes, better safe than sorry. Once he finished the search, Suho finally took a shower, changed into a shirt and pants from the guest closet, and noticed something odd. There were clothes in every size, even fresh new underwear. Is this some kind of occupational habit? Perhaps due to his many assignments, he had started collecting things for his colleagues too. Thanks to that, Suho comfortably changed and sat on the couch. There were no injuries. He had used healing light on himself during the journey, and any minor injuries had already been healed. Suho then opened his status window. Ahn Su-ho, level 40, class healer, strength R2, health 97, mana R2, perception 40, bonus stats 16, his level 40 status window. However, the stats listed below were not at all typical for a level 40. Suho smiled as he looked at them. With this, I'm practically elite. No, I'm on a successor level path. There were many ways to increase stats in this world, but those ways were as vague and as hard to reach as the methods to earn money. Few could do it. Still, some managed to increase their stats. These people were usually either lucky or had massive wealth and received specialized care from large organizations. Typically, the heirs of companies aiming to produce hunters were among those individuals. That's why he thought of this as being close to the path of a successor. Suho used his 16 bonus stats, prioritizing health first, boosting it to red grade. Health stat has reached 100. The health stat grows even further. Congratulations, your health stat has leveled up to red grade. He then invested another point to match the other red grade stats at 2 and spent the remaining bonus stats entirely on perception. Ahn Su-ho. Level 40, class healer. Strength R2, health R2, mana R2, perception 52. Bonus stats 0, closing the status window. Suho reached for his phone, which he had charged earlier. He had seen messages from guild members and journalists who had somehow obtained his number since the safe line. There were plenty of unread messages piling up. Suho flipped through them quickly, noticing a few interesting ones. The first set was from Kim Sue, the head of Nexus Academy and the leading guilds Prime and Hexagon. Of course, other guilds had also reached out. Suho briefly glanced at the messages they had sent, some begging, others trying to make an impact, but he quickly ignored them. Suho already had his future plans in place. The second surprising set was from his former classmates and seniors at the Physical Education University, the ones he had dropped out with. Hey, the Ahn Su-ho in the news, is that you? I saw you on YouTube, it's you, right? Why didn't you tell us, haha? Suho, I'm Kim Chun-ho, the one who hit you last time. I'm sorry. This was expected. Anyone who had known him closely would reach out now that he had suddenly become a massive star, so Suho ignored these messages too. The last message was from Jung Chulmin, a missed call from earlier, around the time Suho was clearing the tower. Seems like I've got him worried. It made sense, considering Jung Chulmin had come with his staff. Of course, the bigger reason was probably the pressure from his superiors. Just a little longer, Chulmin. When I join the Dahian Association, I'll make sure things like this don't happen again. Suho finished reviewing the messages and turned off his phone. He wanted to keep it on, but his number had already been leaked, and the constant influx of messages was draining the battery at an incredible rate. I might need to get a new number soon. He also decided to get a new phone while he was at it. There was a way to change numbers, but that wasn't the best approach. Changing numbers would only invite more attempts to contact him. It would be better to keep the exposed number active and redirect the attention there. With that in mind, Suho used the resident services Jung Hwi mentioned to request a new phone and number. About an hour later, he received a new phone and number at the house. I think this is enough for now. The grade -5 civil service exam was still far away, but that didn't mean he had all the time in the world. Suho already had all his plans set. It's time to meet those guys. Suho began preparing to leave. Let's get started. Okay, late at night in Xiaoqinggu Nigokdong. In front of a building, four people began to move quietly. They were dressed entirely in black with tight clothing and masks that covered their heads and faces. One of them pressed against the window using a skill, and soon the window vanished, leaving a door-sized opening for one person to slip through. It's done, let's go. The path cleared, they infiltrated the building. They weren't concerned about surveillance cameras. They had already disabled them. Even if someone stumbled upon them, it wouldn't matter. They had carefully selected a time when no one would be around. Inside, they began pulling something from their inventories. It was explosives. They began planting bombs inside the building, and just as they did, "Hey, you can't plant bombs in a building." A strange voice echoed from the darkness. At the sound of the voice, the four froze as if they had seen a ghost. They had been certain that no one would come today, yet someone appeared just as they began their operation. Moreover, they hadn't sensed anyone nearby until moments ago. Suddenly, the figure emerged from the darkness. "Hello," the mysterious figure revealed himself. It was Suho. One of the four screamed, "Run!" With that shout, one of them activated a skill, creating a glowing portal. Seeing this, Suho drew a spear from the shadows and threw it. Thud, ugh, the sound of the spear piercing was followed by a scream. The person who cried out was the only woman among them. Suho hadn't hit her, he had pierced her shadow. As she screamed, the remaining three were startled. What happened? Get in. We'll take her first. I'll carry her." Despite their panic, the three moved swiftly like soldiers on a mission. But when one of them tried to pick up the woman, his eyes widened in shock. He was the strongest of the group, yet she didn't budge at all, of course. The moment the portal formed, their shadows had moved toward Suho, and he deliberately impaled them with the Gyeong spear. Shadow binding is activated. Shadow binding, a skill that locks the target's shadow in place. Once their shadows were pierced by the Gyeong spear, escaping was nearly impossible, no matter how strong they were. While the man struggled with the woman, the two others near the portal shouted, "What are you doing? Hurry and bring her. Just a minute, what's happening?" Ugh, the man, strong enough to lift an old tree, was now at a loss. No matter how hard he tried, the woman didn't move. And then, ugh, the woman, trapped in the man's grip, let out a painful groan as he applied more force. It wasn't just from his strength, it was also the shadow bleeding effect. In the end, the man gave up lifting her and drew his weapon. "Everyone, arm yourselves, we need to figure out what this guy did." What? Damn it, it was the worst-case scenario. They had planned for combat, but this was beyond their expectations. But then something unexpected happened. "You're the Banshee, right? Let's have a little chat." The mention of Banshee caused their eyes to widen. Of course, they knew this term better than anyone. Banshee was the name of a notorious secret terror organization in Korea. This group of four had carried out numerous bombings, causing chaos. Well, they were caught in the end. Suho was the one who had captured them. He raised his hands, signaling that he wasn't holding anything, and spoke. "Why are you so surprised? Anyway, let's talk. I came alone." It was true. Suho hadn't even joined the Dahyun Association yet, and he didn't have any friends he could call on. Even if he had joined the association, he planned to handle important matters like this alone. At Suho's words, the Banshee members exchanged glances, clearly rattled. In the end, what Suho wanted didn't happen. Kill him. The three of them charged at him simultaneously. This wasn't an impulsive move. It was the last-ditch plan of the Banshee. As they rushed at Suho, he immediately activated a skill. Intimidation is activated, Chapter 24, at that moment. KHH, KHHH, KKGH, the movements of the three people approaching Suho suddenly halted. This was the effect of the S-grade intimidation from his dragon's blood. Their bodies stiffened as though they had been hit by the fear of a monster. At their current level, these banshees can probably only stand still and breathe. Thus, without any further actions, Suho slowly approached them and began removing their hats and masks one by one. After removing the first man's mask, Suho looked at his face and spoke. "Kim Hyun-min, you're the mobility specialist with a teleportation skill, and your occupation is a delivery man." Next, as Suho removed the second man's mask, he continued. "Seo Kaya-won, you're in charge of making bombs for terrorist activities, and your occupation is a middle school science teacher." Finally, Suho removed the last man's mask and spoke. "Kwak Do-ho. You're a day laborer, and despite your thin frame, you handle the heavy lifting in the team." Now, only one person remained. The only female member of the team, the founder and leader of the Banshees, the mastermind who devised all the operations and protocols. Suho removed the last member's mask, who was stuck by his Gyeong spear, and said, "Gu Yon Hwa. A student at Korea Women's University, the true leader behind the Banshees, and an EMP specialist capable of disabling electronic devices and magical items, right? HH. HH, how do you know that? It's easy to know if you're paying attention, but more importantly, take a good look at my face. Who do you think I am? We've never met." How could I know who you are? Gu Hwa responded dismissively, but as she looked into Suho's face, her expression suddenly shifted to one of surprise. Ah, she knew, she as the brain of the team would recognize him. Her eyes widened and she stammered. Why you're, Ahn Su-ho, exactly, looks like the brain really knows their stuff, now tell them I'm not some weirdo. Suho removed the intimidation and shadow binding effects from Gu Hwa. Her breath, once shaky, returned to normal and she exhaled deeply, finally relaxed. She lifted her head and asked, who are you really? You should be able to tell by my face. How about we talk about it later? How are we supposed to trust you? If you don't want to, then don't. What? You guys have committed 3 terrorist attacks so far, including the one you were about to do today. No civilian casualties yet, but property damage has occurred, so it's still a crime, right? The police have no idea about what you've done, but I know everything. How you planned your attacks, how you covered your tracks, I know it all. And I know where you live and who you associate with. Now how about we talk? Gu Hwa's eyes trembled with shock. Exactly. No matter how much of a future big player you were, a Banshee leader, you were still just a university student who had recently started your operations. Suho released the pressure from the other 3 and spoke. Listen up, I'm not from the government and I don't plan on capturing or harming you, so let's talk peacefully. The 4 of them exchanged glances. Then Gu Hwa nodded and said, fine, good, but first let's move to a different place. We can't talk about such things here, can we? In that case, your hideout is the safest, right? Hyun-min, open the door and let's take a cab there. At this, Kim Hyun-min, the team's mobility specialist, mumbled with disbelief. Crazy. At the Banshee's hideout on the outskirts of Seoul. Once inside, Suho casually sat on the sofa, acting like it was his own place. Since it's your hideout, feel free to relax. I'm fine, so if you're thirsty, help yourself. Suho acted naturally, like the owner of the place. Gu Hwa, momentarily stunned by his boldness, quickly composed herself and sat across from him. All right, enough of the pleasantries. What's your real identity? Why would a famous figure suddenly appear in front of us? And how did you know about us? It's my personal skill. What? It's my personal skill. The fact that I appeared in front of you and knew your secrets, all of it is thanks to my skill. Why? Don't you all have a few skills you keep hidden? You're using them for terrorist activities. I'm doing the same. At that, Gu Hwa went silent. She had no rebuttal, so she changed the subject. So what do you want from us? Work with me. Work. Have you seen my interview with the reporter from PBS? I mentioned some of my plans there. When Gu Hwa nodded, Suho also nodded and said, then it'll be easier to talk. You know my goal is to join the Daehan Association, right? I wasn't just saying that for the interview, it's real. What? Gu Hwa's expression crumpled again. It was difficult for her to understand logically. But Suho said nonchalantly, don't give me that look. Everyone I meet keeps asking if I'm serious about this. So is it really true? Stop asking. Yes, it's true. In fact, I plan to take the grade -5 civil service exam. At those words, Gu Hwa and the others' eyes widened in shock. It made sense, as the grade -5 civil service exam was notoriously difficult, and those who didn't meet the qualifications wouldn't even be considered. By the look on your faces, you all know how hard the grade -5 exam is, but it's true, I'll be taking the exam and I will pass. After that, I'll move up through a couple of positions and eventually enter the special department. Special department. The air grew heavy. This was because the reason the Banshees were formed was directly tied to Daehan Association's special department. Suho knew this well, as he had once worked in the special department himself. But Suho didn't care and continued talking. Why do you all look so shocked? If you can't even manage your expressions, how do you keep secrets? Don't worry, I'm joining the special department for the same reason as you. It's personal reasons. You heard me in the interview, I'm a gate orphan. At first, I thought I was just unlucky, caught in a disaster we couldn't control. But later, I realized what I went through was actually a man-made disaster. Gate-related disasters could cause massive chaos and spread monsters, but Suho now understood that his family's tragedy was no accident. It wasn't a natural disaster, but a man-made disaster. Do you know the saying, once a shell falls in a place, another shell won't fall there again? I know, it's the same for gates, isn't it? Exactly. Once a gate appears, it doesn't appear again in the same location. That's why areas that have cleared gates are designated as safe zones and the property value skyrockets. At this point, Gu Hwa's eyes widened. Are you suggesting? Exactly. The government knew the gate shock was going to happen that day, but they let it happen on purpose. There were multiple development projects tied to that area. I know who was involved in those projects. That's why I'm trying to join the Daehan Association. So you plan to go in and kill them all? No, I'm not going to kill anyone. I'll seek my revenge in another way, but you all are the same, aren't you? You're all targeting special department-related places for your attacks. That's why I'm here. This was all true. Suho's past and the reason behind the formation of Banshee weren't fabricated to trick them. Suho continued. The Special Department is the most powerful force in Dahian Association. It also influences other government agencies and has investigative and prosecutorial powers over players. I plan to become the head of the Special Department and make those responsible pay. Su-ho looked Gu Yonhwa straight in the eyes. The revenge you're planning, I'll help you carry it out in a more specific and effective way. But for that, we need a lot of preparation. That's why I'm here. I need people outside the Dahian Association to be my hands and feet. How about it? Isn't this an interesting proposal? Having said all he needed to say, Su-ho confidently set the paper with his second phone number on the table. Think it over, or you can decide after watching me pass the grade -5 exam. But if you go ahead and commit another terrorist act before that, I'll forget this offer and hand you over to the Special Department. See you? With that, Su-ho coolly left the hideout. Chapter 25. The conversation was enough. The decision was theirs to make, but Su-ho had no doubt about Gu Yonhwa's judgment. Now all that's left is to wait, taking my time. It was likely that they would be pretty startled. After all, these people had never exposed themselves to anyone before. They were a secret organization, almost like ghosts. That's why Su-ho had to pass the grade -5 exam. Even Gu Yonhwa, no matter how cautious she was, would see that if Su-ho actually passed, it would provide them with a much more reliable means of revenge. With his first encounter with the Banshees completed, Su-ho immediately called a taxi and began heading to his next destination. With the Banshees taken care of, his next goal was to reach level 50. Why aim for level 50? The reason was simple. When a player hits level 50, they unlock their first trait. My first trait was the Path of the Sword. Traits were a crucial growth system that elevated a player to a whole new level. Unlike skills or items, traits could be activated continuously and used without significant mana consumption. In that sense, the Path of the Sword, while common, was an essential trait for anyone aspiring to be a swordsman. When unlocked, Path of the Sword increased the experience gain of all swordsmanship-related skills by 50%, and boosted all related stat effects by 20%. But this time I'm going for a different trait. Su-ho had already decided which trait he wanted this time. Currently, most people believe traits were granted randomly, but in the future, a formula for obtaining specific traits would be discovered. That's when research into formulas for trait acquisition started. Su-ho already knew most of those formulas. Even the ones he had only glanced at, he had fully reconstructed using his memory library. So he could choose it now. There were many who had risen to the rank of monster due to a single trait, and Su-ho knew all the ones that could be considered game-breaking. The taxi Su-ho was in smoothly sped toward his destination. Su-ho arrived at the Seoul Central Blood Bank. The once-located Central Blood Bank in Gangseo had moved to Jongno after suffering several gate-related damages. Now, it was one of the famous safe zones. Upon arriving, Su-ho looked around the neatly built entrance to the blood bank and then swiftly scaled the wall beside the tightly closed door. Surveillance cameras, he wasn't worried about them. Though there were certainly many cameras around the blood bank, thanks to his colorless solitude, anyone watching those cameras would be unable to recognize Su-ho. Having successfully scaled the wall, Su-ho activated his mana detection skill and began scanning the area around the building. He spotted something shining in the corner of the building, previously hidden in darkness. There it is. Though it was too dark to see with the naked eye, Su-ho's mana detection clearly revealed the faint mana leakage coming from a specific area. It appeared to be a hidden part of a gate that was leaking mana. Su-ho took out a dagger from his inventory and made a small cut on his palm. Then, he squeezed the blood from his hand onto the sparkling section of the gate's leak. Drip drop, the blood fell. And then, whum, as Su-ho's blood dripped, the dark stain on the gate glowed briefly and started emitting a faint light. Hidden point discovered, conditions met. Hidden gate discovered, congratulations. You have completed an extraordinary achievement and the system gifts you 5 bonus stats. Would you like to enter the hidden gate? System notifications appeared before him. At the same time, a portal to the gate was formed. Seeing this, Su-ho grinned. It was proof that he had come to the right place. However, there was a bit of regret. If only I had arrived a bit earlier, I would have been the first to discover the hidden gate and achieved a great accomplishment instead of just an extraordinary one, earning an additional 5 bonus stats. Still, Su-ho felt that this was sufficient and nodded to the system's question. Entering the gate, fetching gate information, blood leak. Entry requirements unknown, max entry count unknown. The gate's information was frustratingly vague. Like the green-red gate he had previously soloed, this hidden gate shared similarities with an unforecasted gate which had its own unique properties. But Su-ho had no hesitation as he stepped into the portal. He already knew all the important details about this place. As soon as Su-ho stepped into the portal, the surrounding scenery changed in an instant, like a flash of light. There was no exit. As soon as he entered, his body was scattered somewhere in the gate. It didn't matter. No matter where this place was, the end was already determined. Su-ho, looking around at the pitch-black surroundings, took out a small pouch from his inventory. He untied the pouch and scattered the contents into the air. Glowing powder activated. Glowing powder. Among items that illuminated the surroundings, it was a higher-tier item. Once used, it illuminated the surroundings as brightly as a fluorescent light. It lasted for an hour. It was highly efficient and versatile, but the downside was its high price. But Su-ho had bought it without hesitation. He wasn't going to risk his life in a gate just to save a few coins. As the surroundings brightened, the true nature of the hidden gate revealed itself. It was a massive cave. Tap then, a drop of water fell from the stalactites above, and Su-ho looked up at the ceiling. There he could see many bats hanging, wings folded between the stalactites. Su-ho squinted and examined the bats. Vampire Bat LV. 62 Vampire Bat LV. 65 Vampire Bat LV. 61 There were many. Their levels were in the 60s. With about a 20-level difference, he could still manage them with his stats. But when the numbers were in the dozens or hundreds, the situation changed. They say there's no match for a mob. But Su-ho was confident. He had made all the necessary preparations. Su-ho reached out, and from his shadow, Gi-young's spear materialized. He grabbed it, took a throwing stance, and without hesitation threw it toward the bats nestled in the stalactites. Spear throw activated. Thud. The Gi-young spear, with the effect of spear throw, pierced one of the sleeping bats and embedded itself in the stalactite it was hanging from. It didn't scream or make a sound as it died. That was fine. The spear caused a great vibration and noise, waking up all the sleeping bats. Ki-yang, flap, flap, flap. At the cry of one bat, all the others hanging from the ceiling unfurled their wings and began fluttering noisily. The sound was so deafening that it felt as though their ears were going to hurt. The bats flapped around for a while and then began diving toward Su-ho. With their sharp fangs and claws, unlike ordinary bats, but Su-ho didn't move an inch. Instead, he activated a skill. Intimidation activated. Hiving, intimidation. Similar to the fear used by monsters, it presses down on the opponent's mind, causing them to fall into a state of fear and paralysis. However, these creatures were 20 levels higher than Su-ho, and anyone with common sense would consider his actions reckless. But Su-ho's intimidation was no ordinary one. The A-grade intimidation he previously had was upgraded to S-grade due to the added effects of his dragon's blood, and S-grade intimidation had enough power to cover a 30-level difference with ease. As proof of this, Vampire Bat falls into a state of fear due to intimidation. Vampire Bat falls into a state of paralysis due to intimidation. Vampire Bat falls into a state of fear due to intimidation. Vampire Bat falls into a state of paralysis due to intimidation. Vampire Bat falls into a state of fear due to intimidation. Vampire Bat falls into a state of paralysis due to intimidation. Su-ho could see the vampire bats falling helplessly, one after another, while the system notifications kept pouring in. Ki-yang, the bats writhing on the ground, were the result of intimidation. I'm glad I got this early. Of course, intimidation wouldn't work on all monsters. It didn't affect boss monsters, named monsters, or special monsters from places like the Tower of Trials. But despite the exclusions, intimidation was still a highly versatile skill, which was why Su-ho made sure to acquire it early. You can't get it from monsters unless they're at a high enough level, and monsters are designed not to lose their will easily as their levels rise. Su-ho retrieved his Gi-young spear and began finishing off the struggling bats one by one. Vampire Bat defeated, Vampire Bat defeated, Vampire Bat defeated. Was there a more relaxing way to hunt? Thanks to this, Su-ho quickly leveled up, and when he finished off all the vampire bats in the cave, he had raised his level by 3. Let's check the status. Ahn Su-ho. Level 43, Class Healer, Strength R5, Health R5, Mana R5, Sensitivity 55. Bonus stats 8. Even though his stats were in the red color now, the rule of increasing 1 point for each stat when the level went up remained unchanged. Su-ho invested all of his bonus stats into sensitivity. Logically, mana or health would have been the better choices, but when all stats became the same color, a set effect was triggered. Of course, only those who were rich in bonus stats could enjoy such an effect. Most people focus on raising just 2 main stats. But Su-ho, as one of the world's top players in his past life, managed not 2 but 3 stats. But this time I can manage all my stats. It wasn't an unrealistic ambition, it was the result of careful calculation. After distributing the stats, Su-ho stored the defeated vampire bats in his spatial house and moved on to his next destination. Chapter 26. The Hidden Gate Blood's Trace is divided into 3 stages. First stage, Monster Room. Second stage, Monster Room. Final third stage, Boss Room. In the first stage, the opponent is a legion of vampire bats, and in the second stage, you face blood slimes. Of course, this was nothing too difficult for Su-ho. Even in the second stage Monster Room, Su-ho's intimidation skill showed its effectiveness. Thanks to this, Su-ho was able to level up 3 times, reaching level 46 and stand in front of the final boss room. There was nothing to be afraid of. Su-ho knew well what kind of being was beyond this door. As he opened the massive stone slab door, he was met not with a rough, cave-like background, but with a vast marble corridor cleanly arranged. At the end of the corridor stood a massive bed, draped in lace, with the silhouette of someone lying peacefully in the center. It was then you have entered the boss room. The boss monster awakens. Kugagugu. With the notification came the shaking of the surroundings. At the same time, vampire bats that had been hiding in the ceiling flapped their wings, and blood slimes that had been lurking in various places began crawling out like zombies. These were not meant to attack Su-ho, but were shown to amplify the overwhelming presence of the boss monster. Simultaneously, the figure on the bed slowly rose without any exertion. How dare you invade this place? Foolish intruder, do you know what you have just done? The figure on the bed never raised its voice. Yet despite this, his voice vibrated through the entire corridor, ringing loudly and creating an immense pressure all on its own. The cursed prince exudes intimidation. Boss-level fear is activated. The voice itself carried fear within it, and thus its effect was similar to any ordinary fear ability. However, dragon's blood is activated. The mental effect of the dragon's blood negates the effect of fear. Su-ho remained unfazed. This was thanks to the first power of dragon's blood, one of the 2 abilities granted by the dragon's bloodline. Su-ho recalled the effect of the dragon's mind. Dragon's mind. Grade, SA choice, an innate power granted only to those born with the dragon's bloodline. Grants immunity to all mental debuff effects caused by creatures of dragon level or lower. This is why bloodlines were so important. Simply because of his bloodline, Su-ho could ignore the fear from the boss monster. Rather than responding verbally, Su-ho retrieved a spear from his inventory. Unlike the one he had used against the tower dragon, this spear had a faint blue glow. Su-ho used one of his skills on the newly prepared spear. Holy Power is activated. The skill used was Holy Power. It was a basic healer skill Su-ho had acquired upon reaching level 30, which enchanted an item with the Holy Light attribute. After enchanting the spear, Su-ho threw it without hesitation toward the silhouette hidden under the blanket. Throwing spear is activated, the increased strength and penetration power. The spear, enhanced by the skill, flew like a missile and struck the figure's body. Quachik, the attack hit, and then. The cursed prince, rejected from conversation, is greatly enraged. The cursed prince uses blood scream, kaya, a scream of blood. At the same time, the silhouette in bed exploded, scattering in all directions, finally revealing the true form of the cursed prince. He had violet skin, long silver hair, and pale white eyes without pupils, constantly weeping blood from them. Su-ho checked the information above his head. Cursed Prince LV-76, a whopping level 76. Compared to Su-ho, who had just reached level 46 after clearing the first and second monster rooms, there was a 30-level difference. At that moment, the cursed prince, with the spear embedded in his left forearm, screamed in fury. How dare you, a filthy intruder, do you dare ignore my words as well? The cursed prince uses blood scream, another notification. And simultaneously a scream of blood echoed throughout the corridor, and from the cursed prince, blood-colored needles shot out in all directions. Kakang, Su-ho took out his sword from his inventory and blocked the attack. The sword trembled. It was just a range-type attack, but the sword quivered, giving Su-ho a sense of how powerful the cursed prince was. But that wasn't enough to stop him. The tower dragon had been the same in the beginning. Su-ho smiled and thought to himself, as expected, it's the pure silver spear with holy power. This effect is amazing. For this hidden gate, Su-ho had specially prepared weapons. Weapons made of 100% pure silver. It made sense because the Master of Blood's trace, the cursed prince, was of the vampire race. And not just any vampire, but a real royal bloodline vampire. The first person to discover this place was once known as the Blood Grandmaster, a notorious player. He was a rare mixed-race player who, after being bitten by the cursed prince, transformed from a human into a vampire. Well, technically a half-vampire. He had worked as a healer at a central blood bank. By chance, he became entangled with this place and barely made it to the boss room, but unfortunately he couldn't defeat the cursed prince and was bitten, transforming into a vampire. Normally, this would have meant death. When a player is turned into a vampire, the system classifies them as a monster and closes the gate. However, the Blood Grandmaster did not accept this fate passively. Being a healer, he succeeded in neutralizing the vampiric transformation with his skills. To his surprise, new vampire skills appeared and his stats were completely overhauled. His class hadn't changed. It was just that new abilities had been added. Reborn with his newfound power, the Blood Grandmaster successfully defeated the cursed prince, conquered the gate, and became known as the worst villain, Blood Grandmaster, whose name spread worldwide. Well, it ultimately ended in my hands. Su-ho took another spear made of pure silver from his inventory, holding it in his left hand and pointing it at the cursed prince. The cursed prince instantly leapt into the air and began releasing vampire magic. "Arise, my soldiers, SSSS." As soon as the vampire magic was uttered, the blood slimes that had been scattered throughout the corridor began to gather in one place, forming a giant golem. The blood slimes fuse, a blood golem is summoned. A system notification confirmed the event. Above the golem's head was its name. Blood Golem LV-72. It was level 72, nearly the same as the Blood Golem. However, so what? Su-ho was not deterred and prepared for a counterattack. He pulled out his enchanted pure silver spear, aimed at the Blood Golem and threw it. The spear struck the golem's center, and with the impact the golem staggered. Seeing this, the cursed prince's eyes widened in surprise. He hadn't expected his blood golem to be so severely injured by just one throw. In haste, he began summoning more troops. "Gather, my soldiers." Once more magic erupted. The magic targeted the vampire bats. Together with the magic, the bats began to gather in the air and soon transformed into a giant bat. The vampire bats fuse. A 100-year bat is summoned. Following the blood golem, the 100-year bat appeared. It also had a level of 72. But so what? Su-ho pulled out a third silver spear, enchanted it with holy power, and threw it at the new target. The spear pierced the 100-year bat's abdomen, and with the force of the strike, the bat was sent flying, crashing into the wall. Throwing spear is activated. Seizing the opportunity, Su-ho summoned the Gyeong spear and threw it at the bat's shadow. Shadow seal is activated. Shadow bleed is activated. Dealing with flying enemies was the most troublesome when there were no flying skills available. Su-ho had waited to use the Gyeong spear until just the right moment. With the bat immobilized, Su-ho unsheathed his sword. The sword, of course, was another made of pure silver. He enhanced it with holy power and charged toward the blood golem. Draw slash is activated. Decapitation is activated. Close to the blood golem, Su-ho used his sword skills, steadily draining the golem's health. He intentionally avoided the core to attack the golem's body, since attacking the body would kill the blood slimes making it up. Every time he attacked, he received notifications. "You have defeated a blood slime. You have defeated a blood slime. You have defeated a blood slime." Level up, all stats increased by 1. You gained 1 bonus stat. The experience flowed in as the blood slimes fell. Finally, when the blood golem's body was more than half destroyed, Su-ho received another notification. "You have defeated the blood golem. Level up, all stats increased by 1. You gained 1 bonus stat." Once again, Su-ho leveled up. "This is nonsense. What's nonsense?" Surprised by Su-ho's overwhelming strength, the cursed prince stared in shock. However, realizing the severity of the situation, the cursed prince quickly prepared his next attack. In that moment, Su-ho appeared right before him. "Your turn is not yet." "No, how?" Decapitation is activated. Swish. Su-ho swiftly closed the gap and swung his sword. The cursed prince's head fell to the ground and Su-ho kicked it far away. Then, summon Gyeong spear. Gyeong spear is activated. Quachik. Su-ho summoned the Gyeong spear again, embedding it into the cursed prince's decapitated body's shadow. Shadow seal is activated. Shadow bleed is activated. With the special options of the Gyeong spear activated, Su-ho firmly secured the body and drew his sword again. "Just wait a bit longer, I'll finish off that 100-year bat first." What did you say?" The cursed prince for the first time received such horrifying treatment, crying out continuously. But the only thing his head could do was scream loudly. Su-ho, having drawn his sword, approached the 100-year bat, whose health was draining from the shadow bleed, and began slaughtering it. "You have defeated the 100-year bat. Level up. All stats increased by 1. You gained 1 bonus stat." Su-ho had finally reached level 50.